All right. Welcome to episode 304 of the Xbox 2 podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Randall Thor19, the man with the million. And joining me on this underwhelming day, on this nothing burger of a day, I suppose, we have Jez Corden, Windows Central, my buddy, my right-hand man. How you doing, Burrow?
Doing pretty good, actually. Just trucking along, I guess. I've been doing a range of game previews recently, for upcoming games. So that's always really exciting. Can't talk about them yet, but there'll be coverage coming soon to the website and all that kind of stuff. And also, I'll be talking about them here on the show. But yeah, there's a lot of good games on the horizon that I'm pretty hyped about, and I've been checking them out. And yeah, it's hitting our targets, which is always nice. So yeah, we're quite chill and relaxed at the moment. And there's I suppose there's a lot of reasons to be chill and relaxed at the moment.
Did you have a good week? Has it been an okay week for you?
Yeah, overall.
Yeah? Overall, just all right. Have you been looking forward to this podcast, this specific Xbox 2 podcast, episode 304?
What are you alluding to?
I'm just saying, like, we're going to be podcasting about a podcast, essentially, right?
That is true. I suppose, yeah. I was going to say the elephant in the room, but it's not even an elephant, is it? It's more like an elephant shrew, a very small elephant. But actually, I don't know. It's kind of weird, right? Because the rumors were it was going to be a big deal.
Okay.
And then the reality was it wasn't a big deal. But I have to wonder, would this be perceived as a big deal if the big deal wasn't rumored in the first place? You know what I mean? You know, like kind of like when you're negotiating something and you highball it, and then like you accept their lowball offer, but because you knew that's what it would end up being. Do you know what I'm getting at? Kind of. It's hard to explain. So we'll get into that in a minute.
Interesting. Shout out to everybody in chat. Hope everybody's having a great day. We have Mr. Tom Henderson, who dropped a bomb today about a Mandalorian game potentially in the works at, I believe, Respawn, was it? I know there's been a lot of talk about a Mandalorian game, somebody making it, and it sounds like it's Respawn, which first-person Mandalorian game, Star Wars. Man, hopefully a lot of people's motion sickness cleared up real quick, huh? You know, you never know. After everybody got motion sickness with Indiana Jones, I hope they are cured for the Mandalorian for whenever that may come out.
You always look out for people, Rand.
I'm just saying, I want people to live a nice, long, healthy gaming life. And it would sure suck to just, you know, not be able to play one game because of your motion sickness, but then be able to play the other one, you know?
I mean, I feel for people who, like, maybe they've been looking forward to Doom as well, not knowing that it's a first-person game. And they're hoping that the next Doom is third-person. And, man, all those motion sickness peeps not going to be able to
my heart goes out to them, you know?
Heart goes out, bro.
My heart goes out. It's kind of been spicy because I don't know if you've seen it, and we're not really a Nintendo podcast per se, but it sounds like the Switch 2 ain't coming out this year. Where's Donataku at? Where's he at in the chat? Switch 2 ain't happening this year, apparently. But here's the thing. I don't know how people feel about journalists now and insiders, quote unquote, because you know, I mean, screw those dudes. Because after, you know, everything that happened with the Xbox podcast and the business event update and everything with that, but there's this kind of rise in anti-journalist insiders rhetoric going on social media. Which it's
yeah.
very, very, very odd. Very.
They liked it when I was debunking Toys for Bob being shut down though, which is
They
weird.
sure did. They sure did. They absolutely did. They loved it when you said that Metal Gear Solid Delta was going to be a multi-platform release. They loved that too, you know. Or any of the games, you know, you might have talked about in the past, you know. When it fits people's narratives, they like you, but when you don't, you know, they don't. But again, you know what?
That's kind of news in general, though.
You've always
said
said
they can choose what news they like.
You've always said you're a blogger, first and foremost, right? You're a blogger and a podcaster now.
I'm a blogger and a podcaster.
Yeah. Blogger and a podcaster. So thank you guys for being in here. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously, you already know what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. We're going to go over everything that happened yesterday during Xbox's business meeting, which wasn't... I mean, people had hyped that thing up to high... Like, people were streaming it. You know, like, people were like it was E3. Like, yeah, bro, can't wait to get on there, stream this stuff. And,
people
you know...
were streaming it?
Yeah, dude, people were streaming that stuff. You know, the death of Xbox was greatly exaggerated. You know, even though, you know, there are some games coming to PlayStation. So we're talking about that and talking about other things. And PlayStation themselves have some issues. You know, their CEO is pretty much like, God damn, guys, we need to make money somehow. Well, we need to make more money, I guess. Their
margins have shrunk by another 25% or something.
It's
I don't know the exact numbers, but their margins are wafer thin right now, which is not good. Not good if you publicly traded company.
Then you combine that with the Switch 2 maybe not coming out this year. Whew, 2024 not looking so hot. And it's up to Xbox to save it. Because, you know, I guess PlayStation doesn't have any major existing franchise games releasing this year, so it's up to Xbox. It's up to Hellblade. It's up to Indiana Jones. It's up to Redfall. It's up to our History Untold.
Can you imagine if one of the games is Redfall? One of the 4 games.
Oh,
I think Gaz said that. That'd be so.
It'd be funny. But they want people to like, oh, this is what Xbox has? Maybe I should check it out. Not like, ew, this is what Xbox has? Screw them. I'm never playing over there. Their games are awful. And it's probably games that also have sequel potential. And, you know, there's probably no sequel potential in Redfall. Although, you know, as far as I know, they still haven't released all the DLC for Redfall yet, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because there was an expansion pass.
It wasn't like for an expansion of content, but it was for 2 new characters.
Huh.
And they still haven't released those 2 new characters yet. So, I don't know.
I mean, it is widely believed that Roundhouse Studios is the primary dev on Redfall now, I think. So they got to be working on something, I guess.
But anyways, let's do some housekeeping really quickly. We'll get into the everything proper. This episode, once again, is brought to you by Manscaped this week, right?
Oh, God damn it. I'm trying to heal, bro.
What are you doing? Are you playing Overwatch?
No.
Are you playing Overwatch right now? Does Choreborn does Choreborn use Manscaped?
Choreborn.
Whatever his name is, that dwarf. That was
yes, Torbjorn.
Yes. Does he use manscaped.com/?
He does. And anyway, I wasn't playing Overwatch Rand. I was shaving my balls.
Oh,
thank you very much. I was shaving my balls using Manscaped. So Rand, 2024 is here in full swing. And that means it's time for a New Year's resolution check-in with our friends at Manscaped. Newsflash, Rand. It's never too late to level up your grooming game and keep your bush tamed. Manscaped's new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Whether you're going for a trim or that clean-shaven look, this trimmer has you covered. Rand, are you trim or clean-shaven look? Are you never mind. This the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra trimmer has you covered. Trusted by over 10 million men worldwide, now is your time to get a grip on your grooming with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com, use code XB2 for 20% off and free shipping. The ball has dropped, but don't drop the ball on your balls.
Yeah, make your balls look good for your significant other.
There's more.
Oh, there's more. Okay.
There's more, a little more, yes. We got to get through the read, bro.
Okay.
Introducing the MVP of 2024, Manscaped's 5th generation lawnmower. Not just a trimmer, it's your grooming sidekick. Equipped with 2 skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. And for my men who want the full grooming experience, look no further than Manscaped Performance Package 5.0, crammed with goodies to make sure your testicles can pass every test. Get 20% off and free shipping with code XB2 at manscaped.com. Embrace a new you and definitely embrace a new trimmer, courtesy of manscaped.com.
That was a very interesting one you did, Jez. I don't know where I'd rank it in your pantheon of ad reads, but I don't know.
I rank it very, very high, just like the quality of my testicular grooming regime. All thanks to our buddies at manscaped.com. Check out code XB2.
That's right.
Yes. But yeah, that's the good old, Manscaped's been with us for a long time. Like, genuinely great products, like not just for trimming your balls, but like they've got loads of products, boxes, cologne, all kinds of stuff for, grooming, even like stuff like shampoo now and, beard trimmers and nose hair trimmers and just pretty much anything that you'd want to clean yourself up a little bit. So yeah, definitely check them out. Really good deal, really good products. And they've been huge support to the show. But yes, that's Manscaped.
Indeed. We also have some shout outs for the peeps at the Patreon. We have Jay Peltier, Thurgus, Holy Dark Death, Steve Stompy, James Wiseau, Trickster for Trey, The Grandest of Bit, Battered Haddock, Army Dude 52C, Ryan Kipple, Foreign Object, Mythic Marty, Moronic Donkey 99, Makazilla, Randall Thor 19, Silas, Eric Gregory, Elijah Vasquez, James Moore, Fantasticals, Halo is the Goat, K-Trox, Sprite Tundra 1, I Love Gold, Justin Duell, Frank Mariano, PB Broking, Asa T and Madison, Governor Grimm, DZ Huffin, Wagerman Achievement, The Scarecrow 121, Darren Tropy, Prof. JJ, Ghostface Killa, and Wolfgang KPZ. Thank you guys for supporting what we do. And we're going to be trying to do either an Ultimate next week or an Xbox 2+1, depending on if we can get a guest. But either way, something will be happening next week. Hopefully we can get an Xbox 2+1 going. Bring somebody in to talk about everything going on here. So there's a lot going on in the industry right now for sure. I think even though like the Xbox Business Update podcast was pretty much not a big deal for today's Xbox customers, it kind of was an inflection point for the way the industry's going. Like, you look at Sony's margins and all the companies that are shutting down games. I think Embracer have revealed they've cancelled 29 games something
now,
like
or
that,
something
and
ridiculous.
like Bandai Namco's canceled 5, I think. That came out. Yeah, a lot of game cancellations going on.
Things are changing in the industry. I don't think it's all necessary. I mean, obviously layoffs are negative, but I don't think we're not heading for like a 80s style crash. It's just things are going to be different, man. It's all weird and stuff. But yeah, we're going to get into that in depth in a bit.
But I saw some people asking about the game that's currently on screen, Skull and Bones, which is something that you played. And I remember asking you about it. I said to you, Jez, how's Skull and Bones? And you were like, do you want the sugar-coated version or you want the honest-to-God's truth version? And I'm like, just, whatever. let the people know what you thought about Sea of. Well, did I say Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves,
Remember,
yeah,
this was supposed to be the Sea of Thieves killer. Do you remember when Ubisoft announced this game? I think it was. I want to say they announced this game in 2017, right? Yeah. And like Sea of Thieves was going to launch in 2018, but when Ubisoft revealed this game, everybody was like, "Oh, I feel so bad for Rare. Ubisoft is gonna kill him. Rip Sea of Thieves." And all this sort of stuff. Like, they thought Sea of Thieves was going to be dead, and the Skull and Bones game was going to just take over and dominate. And finally, 7 years later, here we are. Skull and Bones is out. Sea of Thieves has gone on to have a hell of a run. That sounds like it's going to get extended on other platforms at some point this year. Mm-hmm. And Skull and Bones is finally out. $70. The reviews don't look very good. I saw a bunch of 4s. It's from your favorite publisher in the world, Ubisoft. So, how is Skull and Bones?
Okay, well, this can't be a full review because I haven't finished the game. But quite honestly, Rand, I think I've pretty much seen everything the game has to offer.
Give it to us raw, Jez. Give it to us raw.
It's probably the most boring game. The most boring $70 game I've ever played in my life.
Yes.
Probably.
Okay.
It is like one thing that oftentimes I always hear about games that are in development, and this, speaking to devs and stuff like that, they often say things like, "We were struggling to find the fun." Like we had like a bunch of mechanics that we threw together, and the issue was we couldn't find the fun. We couldn't find the fun. Like I hear that sort of that way to describe difficult projects a lot, but it feels like nobody at Ubisoft was like, "Where's the fun here?" You know, it's like the game sort of hit this sunk cost fallacy issue where it's just like, we've spent so much money on this now, we have to ship something and try and recoup some kind of investment, right? I've played it for about 6 hours, I think I would say, which is probably more than anyone I would ever recommend put into this game.
Damn.
It is vanishingly boring. It is absolutely devoid of any charm and depth. It is utterly atrocious and
utterly atrocious, man. Put that in the box.
It's terrible. It's a shame, right? Because I really, I've got this thing, right, where I want to be a contrarian. It's just a thing. Sometimes I want to be a contrarian, right? And I talked about like Windows Phone back in the day, having a Windows Phone specifically to annoy someone who I knew was an Apple fanboy. So I was like, I'm going to be as contrarian as possible and get a Windows Phone, So I went into this like with the mindset of, I'm going to desperately try and figure out what this game is for, who it's for, where the fun is, and all that kind of stuff. And I just couldn't. The game has no redeeming features whatsoever. It's like you basically just blow up boats. That's the whole game loop, right? You can't really you can't get out your ship and shoot anything, even though you're a pirate. Even though you can get cosmetic guns to wear on your character and stuff, you can't use those guns. You can't do anything. You can't shoot. You can't fight. You can't swashbuckle. You can't use a sword. You can't do anything like that. You are just a boat, right? And I think I said on Twitter, I said something like, hey, these kind of games can work. I mean, look at World of Tanks, right? Because in World of Tanks, you just play as a tank and you just blow up other tanks. But I suppose the key difference there is first of all, World of Tanks is free to play. I didn't know this was a $70 game. I thought it was like maybe it was either free to play or it was like a $30 game. I did not know it was $70. So there was that aspect of it. Second of all, at least in World of Tanks, you're playing against other humans and a lot of other humans. And while I think you can PvP in this. I mean, I don't know why you would ever want to, because it just doesn't play like that. I don't know. So basically, all you're doing is you're sailing around, blowing up ships for absolutely, completely arbitrary reasons, and the ship combat's probably the best aspect of the game.
I mean, I would
Honestly,
hope
like,
so, considering what the game
yeah,
is.
yeah, it's fun, you know. It works, and it's satisfying when you blow up a ship and, you know, the flames come out and all that kind of stuff. And the different ship weapons you get are also quite fun, but there's not very many of them. And so, like, the game has like this vertical progression layer where it's like, okay, you've upgraded to cannon 1, now upgrade to cannon 2, now upgrade to cannon 3. Okay, now you can fight ships that are level 3. Now you can fight ships that are level 4. Now you can fight ships that are level 5. And that's pretty much it. It's just like this arbitrary grind. And I like games that are that are grindy, you know. I like those kind of games. And I was thinking like this could be like a mindless sort of grindy kind of game that I could get into. But there's just the combat isn't dynamic enough or varied enough to sort of carry the whole game, I guess. And it's difficult to do anything in the game. Like it takes ages to get from point A to B. So like in Diablo, for example, where Diablo is a mindless grinding game, but in Diablo, it's like within seconds of getting in the game, you're killing hundreds of monsters. In this, it's like, okay, you've got here's a bounty on an elite ship. Go over there and slay the dude, right? There is a fast travel system, but if like if you're already out at sea, you can't use it, so you have to go and dock somewhere with the fast travel system. Just getting there can take anywhere between like five and 10 minutes maybe. So that can be a chore. And then it can be like, okay, so the ship you want to kill is halfway out in the middle of the ocean. And then it's like, now I've got to like sail for like 15 minutes to get there. And then, you know, you might get killed. So then it's like, I've just wasted half my day trying to do this one quest. Just so I can get this loot, so I can upgrade my cannon from cannon 2 to cannon 3. I don't know, man. It's just, maybe we'll find an audience. Maybe there is an audience out there for this game. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, because it does have that kind of vaguely addictive Diablo quality where it's like you're grinding and upgrading and then, you know, seeing bigger numbers and stuff like that. But it's kind of wrapped in this laborious sailing simulation, which I don't know who wants that. So maybe it will have an audience, I don't know, but it lacks the depth and the charm and the interactivity of Sea of Thieves. And that's what it really did for me. It was like, I just want to play Sea of Thieves. I want to play this. I'd rather go and check out what's changed in Sea of Thieves since the last time I played, because that, by pure comparison, is a far more interesting game. So yeah, that's Skull and Bones. I wasted 6 hours of my life playing it and then uninstalled it forever.
Well, that's what you need to do. You need to just get your YouTube on and be like, I played Skull and Bones, so you don't have to, or whatever, and that'd be your video, you know? Or you could do like everybody else does, like my honest review of Skull and Bones. You know, like.
Well, I put in the podcast, you know, so it's podcast content, I guess. But yeah, Skull and Bones. I really think they really dropped the ball fucking hard on this, because Assassin's Creed Black Flag was so good. It's probably my favorite Assassin's Creed overall, I think. Well, I think objectively, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is where the series maybe peaked. I think Assassin's Creed Black Flag is my personal favorite, just because I just kind of like pirates. And it's like Ubisoft saw what they did with Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and then we're just like, let's turn this into an MMO, except let's remove anything that's piratey about it. No swashbuckling, no gun combat, no plundering and all that kind of stuff. You're just a boat. I just don't know why they thought this was a good idea, or if something went so horribly wrong in development, they were just like,
I think it went through like 3 different iterations or something, and it was one of those games that I think they had to release because they got tax breaks or something from wherever they were building the game, foreign government or whatever. So it was like, we're contractually obligated to release this game at some point.
Oh, dude, you know what's really embarrassing about it too? Speaking of like the fact that it was developed, I think Ubisoft Singapore led development on it, right?
I think so.
But the thing is, when you're booting the game up, there's like an opening credit sequence, and it lists all the different Ubisoft studios that worked on the game, and it's like 20 different fucking studios worked on this game. It's like Ubisoft Toronto, Ubisoft this country, Ubisoft that country, and like Ubisoft devs that I didn't even know existed. It's like, how many people worked on this game across the entire globe? And this is what they came out with. I'd be too embarrassed to put my name on this game, to be honest.
Ubisoft's not having a go of it right now, bro.
No,
Prince of Persia, I know there were some numbers that Tom Henderson had put out a while back about Ubisoft, and they were very disheartening. As someone who, very much talked about how amazing Prince of Persia was, to see those numbers and be like, basically nobody bought or played Prince of Persia is so disheartening because it's so amazing. I think
they did no marketing whatsoever for that game.
I think it also just reinforces the notion that Metroidvanias aren't really. It's a very, very niche genre, right? Even on but just to see that's like for how good that game is, it's like nobody really even bothered. And then you have Avatar, which didn't really seem to do very good either. Although it seems Assassin's Creed Mirage did well for what it was. I can't imagine Skull and Bones is going to set the world on fire. This is probably going to be, something like $70 is for something like this. That's a tough pill to swallow. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're somewhat vaguely interested in this, like, if you're sitting there like, hey, I really liked Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and I like the the sailing aspect of it, I could really go for something with that. And then here comes this game, and you're just like, I just replay
like it, man.
Assassin's Creed 4, or do I get this and spend $70? Now, granted, they do have a subscription service. You can subscribe, and you can play the game, and they've talked about this stuff. But honestly, I see this game. I'm watching the footage as we're playing. I talked to you about the game. I wouldn't even subscribe to Ubisoft Plus for $15 or whatever it is, $17 to play this game just to see. This doesn't.
I'd unsubscribe. I'd be a subscriber and I'd play this and be like, yeah, I'm done with this service. Like, I really honestly wanted to like it because like I said, I love Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and it had the thing that I was really craving from Sea of Thieves, which was vertical progression. The thing that I don't like about Sea of Thieves is that you can't really level up. There's nothing to really go for. Like, I got all the cosmetics that I wanted, and I was just like, I'm kind of done with this game, And I understand it's not that kind of game, but I'm not that kind of gamer who likes that kind of game. So I was kind of hoping Skull and Bones. I mean, I think I said on this podcast before, I was actually kind of looking forward to it and seeing if it was actually, give it a real chance, because I wanted that vertical progression. But the vertical progression is just not good. I upgraded my ship a couple of times, and it just I got bigger numbers, but there's not that many different weapons to use, that many different tools to get. I think there's 6 different kinds of main weapon.
Is there a story, or kind of loosely?
Kind of like there does seem to be some kind of story, but like the sort of the ways that you progress the story all revolve around fetch quests. So I was just kind of like, I don't want to do this. And also there was they had these Sea of Thieves style, treasure hunts for buried treasure, and there was a map, and it was like, okay, find this point on the map, and then there'll be some buried treasure there. And it was just this vague sketch, right? And the map is just huge. The map is so big. But it's a bad thing in this, because it's just I was just thinking to myself, I could look for this treasure, which is literally going to be looking for a needle in a haystack. And then you sail your boat next to it, and then it just magically appears on your ship, right? Because there's all these mechanics, you can grind wood, and you can grind materials, and you have to get the materials to build the cannon +2 and +3 and stuff like that. But it's the way you do it is you sail your boat up to the tree, and then you do this little like soaring mini game to sort of saw the tree down, and there's like the tree randomly vanishes, and now you've got like +5 wood. It's just complete. It's an awful game, man. It's awful, and the fact that it's $70 is criminal. They were just them selling that for $70 is them admitting they knew it wasn't going to sell. So the only people they were going to sell it to are people who just either die hard into this kind of game for whatever reason, and they knew they'd buy it anyway, or just people who bought it by mistake, I guess.
Bought it by mistake. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, you're gonna buy a game by mistake. At least it's $70, not $20 or something. They sent that game out to die because they knew it was terrible, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll hear much about Skull and Bones again from now on.
Okay. Yeah, for those of you wondering, I finished Suicide Squad. And I think I have about 18, 19 hours in it. And my opinion mostly remains the same from last week. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think it's okay. Really, that's what I would say. It's okay. It's like some of the games for me, like I played it because it's Rocksteady. I played it because it's a sequel to Arkham Knight, right? It's set in their universe that they built, and I wanted to see how everything progressed. And they have all the trappings of, the Rocksteady pedigree with, the cutscenes and the facial animations, and here's, all the DC characters, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all that stuff. And I was like, but it's like tied together by this live service game that is clearly meant to be played in co-op, which I played solo. And I didn't have a bad time. It was just kind of like, I could see why maybe it'd be a mindless experience. Like you get in co-op and everybody's playing a different character and you're just going around, jumping around and shooting stuff because they just throw enemies at you all the time, and like all these different versions of enemies that don't really matter, and all the missions are like, the mission structures are all basically virtually the same. And even as like a looter game, like when you play like a looter shooter, which this really is, because you're completing missions, and every mission you complete, you get like new weapons or whatever, or some perk, or you're leveling up to increase your stats, and every time you shoot an enemy, you see the numbers go off of them, like, 5,000, 4,000, right? I didn't really feel like the loot was rewarding at all. Like, none of it was. Like, I didn't really get that much loot. And
everything you're saying is basically how I felt about Skull and Bones. It's basically like service games developed by people who don't know why they're making a service game.
Yeah, but there are some cool things, like, when you fight, the Justice League. The Green Lantern fight was, I thought, pretty damn good. I mean, the Batman fight at least looked visually impressive, like kind of like the demon from the end of Batman Arkham Knight. The Flash fight was fun, but all the regular missions were all basically variations of like, go here and kill all the enemies and then leave, right? And maybe if you're into that, chasing the loot and min-maxing your character, building out a loadout and all that stuff, you might enjoy it more if you're like constantly coming back to it, changing characters. Because I just played Deathshot, because I played all the characters in the tutorial, and I was like, I think I like Deathshot the most, so I used him. And there were parts where like the game does feel good to play. It runs at a consistent 60 frames. It looks great. And sometimes it even have sparks of... I would have sparks of like real honest to God, like, man, there's something here. I just wish it wasn't like completely bogged down by the oppressiveness of like the live service. Like, oh, you go rescue Penguin, and Penguin's gonna now give you guns, and you can go there and you can trade in all the different sort of currencies that you collect for no reasons, which they never explain, as far as I'm aware, that I can remember. And you can get epic weapons from him, or legendary weapons, but they have this one character that also modifies you so you can upgrade yourself. And then someone else is like, Poison Ivy can put afflictions on your melee stuff, and your grenades, and this other character does this other thing, and it's, oh man, it's.
So basically, the game could have worked maybe if it was single player and it didn't have all this.
Yeah,
and it was
but
a
it's
focused single player experience where you play.
Well, that's
as
what
like,
it is.
I don't
It's
know,
like that's
something.
kind of what it is. Half of it is that. Like I was playing through the missions to get to the story content, which is why I was playing it in the first place. And like the gameplay loop wasn't awful like, a lot of people said it was. It was all right. Where I wasn't like hating it, and I was just like, yeah, this is enjoyable to a certain extent. But the game wants you to constantly like, obviously keep on playing more and more to get better gear, and I literally got, I think, like a sniper rifle halfway through the game, or maybe it was like a quarter of the way through, because you can carry two weapons, and I never replaced it in a looter shooter. I never got rid of it because I was so happy with whatever rolls I had on it. And of course, then eventually you could take it to a character and re-roll the things on it, right? But I was so happy with like what it gave me that I never even bothered to replace it, because I was just, was doing great with headshots, and that's mainly what I used was the sniper. So in a game that, like when you're playing Destiny or Borderlands, you're always trading out your guns because you're always getting better gear. And this one, I didn't really change out my gear a whole hell of a lot at all, because I hardly ever got like better gear, at least, or gear that I wanted to use. It is a very weird game. But then I talked to a couple people on my friends list who are playing it, and they really enjoy it. And it's a weird experience, man.
Well, our reviewer loved it.
I mean, I could see, like, I talked to Miles. Miles loved it. He's loving it. He's playing it with his crew, live service. They're enjoying their time. I'm like, I get it. Maybe, if you're really into that stuff, but that's not, why. Maybe it's just, I'm just not that type of gamer who's, like, into that specific style of game.
Yeah.
But I am into, like, what Rocksteady normally does. And I did want to see the continuation of the Arkham universe. And I was compelled to play it because I wanted to see how everything went. And, like, everything was, like, story-wise and stuff, I was into it. I mean, Nolan North voices Superman, and he's awful at it. He is, like, the worst Superman you can possibly imagine. His voice for Superman is all. I was like, when you finally get Superman, I'm like, wait a minute, is that Nolan North? Is that Drake doing the voice of Superman? I'm like, that is not my Superman. Hashtag not my Superman. But yeah, so Suicide Squad's over. And now it's on to the next game, which, have a couple.
Overwatch Season 9?
No Overwatch. No Overwatch at all. I think I might play Banishers, the Banishers game that came out from Dotnod. Banishers Ghost of New Eden, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
I think I might check that out.
Our reviewer really liked that game. I did remember thinking this is a Rand game,
I did watch the trailer. It did seem pretty interesting. And Dotnod, I mean, they put out Jasant recently. I quite enjoyed that chill game. I have enjoyed the Life is Strange games in the past, so they do make a lot of games that I typically enjoy. And the trailer at least made the game somewhat intriguing. And I'm like, well, it can't be worse than. I mean, I thought Suicide Squad was okay. I mean, here's the thing. I don't even know. I wouldn't recommend Suicide Squad. Like, I bought it for myself. And it's like, people ask me, would I recommend it? And I'm like, it depends. Like, what are you going in for? Right? Mm-hmm. And considering how I don't really think this game sold very well, I would imagine that this stuff is going to be on sale pretty quickly. So if you're someone who's, like, into the DC stuff and loves Rocksteady games, they'll probably wait for a sale, because I would imagine that's coming. But if you got a crew that loves like looter shooter stuff, you might enjoy it, because the people that I've talked to seem to really jive with Suicide Squad.
I think when you're playing with friends, like I even spoke to people who played Redfall with friends and said they had, got something out of it. I think just a lot of service games really struggle to thread that needle between, like, is this actually fun to play solo? Because Diablo, is fun to play solo, even though it's a service game. I mean, the live service is not very good at the moment, but
you know,
I think it will be eventually.
Can I make an admission here?
Go on then.
I think I enjoyed Suicide Squad more than Diablo 4.
Yeah, well, that's because we know that you've got bad taste. We've established this across 6
Honestly,
years
now
of this
that I'm thinking
podcast.
about it, because Suicide Squad's, yeah, I think I enjoyed Suicide Squad more.
That's like I said, we've established on this show that you've got bad taste, and that's okay.
I mean,
It's okay,
I got
man.
the best taste, so I don't know about you.
Well, you're a big DC guy, right?
I mean, yes. Yeah.
I mean, that our reviewer liked it on the basis that she really likes DC. So, and that's kind of like, I feel, who at least will probably get maybe more out of this than most people is if you are actually someone who cares about DC.
Yeah, plus, like,
I only really like Batman. Like Green Lantern and all that stuff is just kind of meh. I don't even... What is Green Lantern's power? He's got a ring or something?
Yeah, and you can make anything with will, essentially.
Right.
Make anything that you can imagine with will. I mean,
So
I'm not surprised you
make
love
money?
Diablo, because you just love click and click and click, 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 click. You know, you're like, this is so epic, bro. Look at this monster I'm killing. Click, 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 click. You know, it's amazing.
I don't like.
Dude, I
like
just
story
procced
games
him for
anymore.
1,000,000 damage. Click, 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 click. You know.
Dude, it was so epic when I started getting 1 million damage blood lances, bro. But yeah, I see what you mean. People like different things, and that's fine.
Indeed.
Fine.
Indeed. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of these super chats, get into everything. If you guys are enjoying the show, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, share this out, let everyone know we're live. We're going to be talking about the Xbox business update and everything going into that. We got Don Itaku, who's been crying because the Nintendo Switch has been delayed to next year, apparently. It says, Rand, it's over. The Switch will be getting all your first-party games, and it will be the best play-to-play Xbox. 540p, 25 FPS is the gold standard. Okay. Developer says, at least we finally debunk Xbox has no games. Code says, hey, question for Jez. When Wildcard released Ark ASA, they marketed the game as built from the ground up to be impossible to mesh and hack. But my entire server just got meshed and hacked part 2 in a minute.
Wait, what?
He says, when Wildcard released Ark ASA, which I think is like the new, like the remaster, he says they marketed the game as built from the ground up to be impossible to mesh and hack, but my entire server just got meshed and hacked part 2 in a minute.
You can't, when a developer says something like, my software is unhackable, that's just like a big beacon to hackers saying, please hack my shit. Because they're just basically asking for it at that point. So yeah, when a company says that something of theirs is unhackable, it's just don't believe it.
Okay.
But I ain't well versed in what's going on with that game, but I'm just not exactly. I'm not super confident in when someone says something's not hackable, because they develop all those like anti-crack and anti-cheat stuff, and it always ends up getting cracked, hacked, and smacked.
Crash hacked and smacked. Is that what
crack, hack, smack? Yeah, I just wanted to make a rhyme there, but yeah, I don't know. I could look into it if you fancy, but I'm not very familiar with that game, to be honest.
Logic Bomb says, is there any info on Project Mara or the Elite 3 controller to be heard? Also, rep your hood, Rand, lol. Plain field for the wind. Interesting. Any info on Project Mara? No, I don't think so. And Elite 3 controller?
Nope. It'll happen.
It'll happen at some point. I would imagine it'll happen when they can put the haptics in it. Because there's the rumored new controller, Sybil, that's coming with haptic grips. Maybe he's releasing this year. Maybe it's not. I would imagine they could then build an Elite Series 3 using the haptics and the grips for the, and I think it was on the roadmap. There was, an Elite controller, so it'll happen at some point. We're just not sure when. One thing you can count on Microsoft for is they love their controllers, and they will release lots of them.
Yeah, I mean,
So
they're the default PC gaming controller as well. So, um, yeah,
it's
they'll definitely happen. I mean, the Elite controllers seem to. I mean, the whole thing about the Elite controller and that was the issue was the quality control. Like you'd spend all this money on a controller and then it'd end up like breaking after a few months. Like the first Elite controller had that really bad issue with the grips falling off, and then there's like a bunch of issues with the shoulder button on the new one. But the current version of the Elite controller I've got seems pretty solid. I've had this for a year now, and the grips haven't fallen off. The shoulder buttons haven't gone weird, and I don't have any stick drift. So I mean, I've said that now. It'll probably fall to bits this week, but fingers crossed. So far, it seems like they might have nailed all that stuff. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I think. Oh man, I feel like I'm not going to say this actually.
okay.
I was gonna say a rumor, but we don't. Nobody likes rumors anymore, so we won't.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Nobody
Everyone
likes
hates
those
rumors,
anymore.
so
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, no more rumors.
no more rumors.
Okay. Wagerman, what's up, buddy? He says, "Hey guys, what a week, huh? What effect do you think this has on the insider tactics? Do you think people are more or less likely to believe them? Thanks."
It depends what the track record is. Always, you know. I mean, I suppose like with this stuff, so there was some very specific claims that just didn't manifest in reality, right? And I think the drama really kicked off when it was claimed that Starfield is gonna
Yeah, that's when
go further afield.
that's when the proverbial shit hit the fan. Indeed, was the Xbox Series report that Xbox was contemplating, planning on releasing Starfield after the new expansion was come out or something. Yeah, that's when it started.
So that, and then Nate corroborated that, right? And it was like, well, okay, Xbox Era literally leaked the entire State of Play event, and PlayStation shit a few weeks prior. So it's kind of like they get stuff right, you know. So it seemed completely reasonable to believe that all these rumors were going to culminate in a Starfield being released on PlayStation. And I think that's the shit hit the fan there, because it's like you can make an argument for Hi-Fi Rush. Like you can say like it makes total sense. The game will do really well on Switch in Japan. You can make an argument for Sea of Thieves. It's like, yeah, Sea of Thieves, you know, has done all it can on Xbox and PC. Yeah. You know, it'll find a new audience.
You can make a really good argument for Sea of Thieves.
You can make a really good, yeah, exactly. But when it comes to Starfield, it's like, okay, now you're putting your single player games on there, which are kind of like you sort of exclusive content, which, you know, it's Bethesda Game Studios does not need cash flow necessarily, because they've got Fallout 76 still trucking along. They've already got like you know, the back catalog of games which sell really well still, like Skyrim and stuff. So like if Starfield's not necessarily like a situation where it's like, oh, Bethesda desperately needs money right now, all you're doing is creating this sort of like this world where it's like, okay, you put Starfield there, why not everything? Why not just put Halo there? Why not put Forza there? Why not put Gears there? And then I think someone else said Gears of War was coming as well, being considered. Don't know who said that.
That would have been the Grubster.
All right.
You know,
I think the Verge corroborated that too, and the Verge was saying that Indiana Jones was being considered. But so then it felt like, you know, that's when, you know, the shit hit the fan, and it just felt like, well, this probably means everything's coming or everything's slated and whatever. But you know, and that's when everyone freaked out. But I forgot what the original question was now.
The question was, are people more or less likely to believe insiders, and how would it change the insider tactics?
Well, I don't know what insider tactics are, first and foremost. I mean, the job about being a journalist or having journalistic behaviors, you know, I mean, I don't think Nate would describe himself as a journalist, but when you're reporting on information, that's a journalistic behavior, right? So I suppose, at least for my sake, I'm gonna react more slowly, even when it's a trusted source. I suppose, for my end, but I can't speak for what other people do, because I am someone who I'm good at debunking things. Like if there's misinformation out there, it's often at times a lot easier for me to get something debunked than to get new information, because I got sources who will literally tell me if something's bullshit straight away. So like when I first started hearing these rumors about Xbox doing third-party hardware, for example, that was another rumor going around. That's complete bullshit. And then I also heard that games were going to start coming out on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. I debunked, and people often point to a tweet I made where I said, "Oh, this is bullshit. It's just fanboy cope," right?
Mm-hmm.
That's because the game I was investigating at the time was Starfield, and it was Hellblade. So the rumor was that Starfield and Hellblade had PlayStation 5 builds. I don't know where that was coming from, but then I tweeted out, "This is bullshit," because it just felt like, well, if they're not doing those, then probably not doing anything, right? But then they kept persisting, and it just felt like, well, there must be something here. And it's just like, well, it does seem like Hi-Fi Rush is actually the game they were talking about doing. So I suppose that the tactics, at least I can't speak for what other people do, but my thought process is like, even people who have a really good track record for leaking and reports and stuff, maybe can get things wrong, and maybe can get the context wrong, but I also don't think it's Xbox Series' fault, because I have heard, again, I don't want to do rumors,
Yeah,
but
you might as well not.
um,
No, you can't do them. People don't like it. People don't like it.
people don't like it, but I will say I don't blame Xbox Era. I don't think the information they got was necessarily incorrect, or at least I think the information, I think potentially, and I would never be able to find out. Obviously, they'll never tell me who the source of that information was, but I've got a feeling that they were fed incorrect information by someone looking to cause drama.
Mm. So
And that's an internal rumor going around at Microsoft right now.
So
By the way,
here's the thing. When you say, do you think people are more and less likely to believe insiders? It depends on who the rumor benefits, right? If an insider came out and said, "Hey, I'm hearing that Sony is going to consider doing more PC day and date releases," right? Well, the PlayStation community is going to be like, liars. And the Xbox community is going to jump on that and be like, ha ha ha. They'll point fingers at it, right? Like, ha, you're losing your games or whatever. That's how these things go. If it's beneficial to you and the platform that you rep, you'll believe it. If it's detrimental to the platform you rep, you'll scream at the top of your lungs that it's not true, that nobody has sources and they're all just doing this for engagement and clicks and stuff. So I don't really think anything's going to change, because as soon as somebody puts out like a really great, let's say, a rumor about Xbox maybe locking down some big third-party exclusive, everybody who like trashed some of these, whether it was Xbox Era or Tom Warren or Tom Henderson or whatever, they'd be the first ones on the front lines, basically screaming, be like, "Hell yeah, go Xbox!" Right? So it really depends on what the rumor is and who it benefits and who it doesn't. I mean, it's not really.
We live in a world, right, where people can just ignore information they don't like.
Exactly.
If people are like, I want to believe this narrative about this thing, I'm just going to ignore all the facts and just go on believing whatever I want. And this goes into the whole fake news thing and all that kind of stuff. And I had dudes last week flaming me on Twitter saying that I'd spread Starfield rumors, which wasn't even my report for one thing. But they chose to believe that it was my report because they want to dislike me because they've got their own podcast and they want to clout chase or something. I don't know. But I also had dudes out there who were like flaming me. People who've been like, and you might have seen me tweet out last week. I tweeted out something like, people are so two-faced on it. And it's because like I had dudes who were tweeting shit about me while also begging me in DMs for leaks about Xbox and, you know, my opinions on things. And, you know, it's when it's something that people like and want to hear, then they love it. When it's something they don't want to hear, then they cry like little bitches and they can't handle it because everyone's so fucking sensitive and whiny these days. I think like the most obvious example is, you know, just look at how divisive politics has become. And it's because no one wants to accept that they don't want to compromise. They don't want to accept that the other side might have a good point or anything like that. They just want to live in this reinforced echo chamber. And, you know, that's what social media has done to the world, you know. Social media was a mistake, basically, is the long and short of it. But I'm not going to stop reporting things. Like I've always said on the show, if it's on Windows Central, it's a report, you know. And people don't know the difference between speculation and a reaction and stuff like that. And people were out here saying, "Oh, you reported that Starfield's going there," and it was like, no, I was just reacting to other people's reports. I'm not going to apologize for giving my natural fucking reaction to something and thinking it's a bad thing. I think Starfield going on PlayStation, I think it would be a bad thing. I think it'd be a net bad thing because it would erode faith in the idea of Xbox ever having exclusives. And like people were like, "Oh, you said Xbox would be a beta testing console for PlayStation." It's like, yeah, it would be. It'd be like, hang on a sec, we were out here with the you know the less fully featured version of Starfield, and now you're out here giving, you know, PlayStation the fully featured version, which will probably get 9 out of 10 and won't have any discourse and won't have any negativity because they'll be like, "Oh, now Starfield's on PlayStation, it's fixed now, it's got the expansion, it's got all the extra features and all the stuff that people wanted, so Starfield's fixed now and it's good because it's on PlayStation." You really don't think that wouldn't be bad for Xbox? That wouldn't be a bad look for Xbox, that the games release first on Xbox and then get fixed up and polished and then come out on PlayStation? That'd be a bad look. So yeah, I'm not apologizing for the way I reacted to any of that stuff. But at the same time, it's like I'm gonna definitely take more of a wait and see approach because clearly, you know, someone, I genuinely believe this, someone at Xbox or someone who was formerly of Xbox was playing a pretty dangerous game with all that stuff, you know. It'd be interesting to see what comes out of all this in the coming weeks because, you know, Microsoft's going to do some kind of investigation about where all this information came from.
Yeah, you could just be like me and just be chill, bruh, you know.
It's kind of my job to report on this stuff, you know, and react to it.
Yeah, but I mean, I wanted
Microsoft to hear loud and clear that, you know, we don't want them to go fully third party. Sure. And that hardware, we want our hardware ecosystem to still be here.
Right. You know? No, 100%. Yeah. Well, we still have a lot more to talk about this. Code 3 in the Super Chat says, Wildcard seems to not care about it after being given all the evidence in the world. Jez, can you make Microsoft aware of this or investigate this yourself? The common good of gaming deserves an answer.
I mean, I can definitely look into it. I mean, I think we do have someone on the team who plays Ark, so I'll ask Beard about it. Remember Beard?
Mm-hmm.
Beard's,
yeah, I know Beard.
Epic got like 20,000 hours in Ark.
So, yeah, so I'm going to check into it. Elijah, a member for 17 months, says, have you guys talked to Tim Dog? He's gotten to full-blown attacking others for asking simple questions and swears all Xbox games are coming to PlayStation 5. I talked to Tim the other day. You know, he's fine. I don't know what he's saying on Twitter, but yeah, I don't know. Have you talked to Tim?
I've talked to Tim. Tim just lost faith in Xbox's messaging, which, I don't know if it's fair enough or not. It's kind of like Xbox has said that there's two camps of people, there's two schools of thoughts with this stuff now, and it's like Xbox said, there's 4 games coming.
Yeah, okay, let's just get into it, right? Let's talk about the podcast then, shall we?
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's talk about the Xbox business event. Yeah. So they put out the podcast. Everybody was probably the most watched gaming podcast of all time, the most anticipated one. Everyone's got to watch this, got to stream this, right? Everybody thought this was like a E3 level announcement, and it was 22 minutes long, so it wasn't long at all. You had Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty on stage, or what you want to call it, a stage, talking about for an update, there wasn't really much changing outside of the games going to PlayStation or Switch, was there? Because there were people talking about Game Pass was changing, or they were going to remove day one games for Game Pass. But the main message of the show was essentially that 4 games from Microsoft were going to go to other platforms. They wouldn't name the 4 games, but we pretty much know what they are. They're Hi-Fi Rush, they're Pentiment, they're Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. 2 community games that they kind of feel that maybe are tapped out in their user. I mean, they explain the reasonings why in the podcast, like, hey, 2 community games might have tapped out their audience on console. We're going to, give it to more people on other platforms so we can invest more, get more people playing it. And then 2 smaller games that were never really supposed to be that big, or, big platform exclusives. And, we're going to, give them to other people or whatever. All the explanations are there, right? And the funny thing is, Jez, out of all this is, I see a lot of people sort of, how do I accurately say this? Originally, when the Nate the Hate report hit, where he said, a critically acclaimed game was going to hit Xbox, and it basically came out with Hi-Fi Rush, a lot of people didn't believe him, and a lot of people were like, absolutely not. Xbox single-player games should not come to other platforms. Some people were like, if it's just the Switch, it'll be fine. Just the Switch, because Nintendo are friends, right? Everybody loves Nintendo. They're our friends, so you can put the games on Nintendo. They're our friends, right? Even though there's plenty of instances where Phil talked about, hey, Ori, and how he didn't want to do that anymore, but now we're gonna go through this again 3 years later, right? Or any of the stuff he talked about at the Bethesda roundtable, right? Okay, whatever. Yeah. Business realities change all the time, and corporations are gonna do what they need to do to get a max return on their investments and all that sort of stuff.
You're gonna say
right?
Corporate.
I was just Kojima's gonna Kojima. It was like corporations are gonna corporate, right? They're gonna do what they have to do, and Phil's gonna have to say what he has to say to get the job done. He's in in that position. So sometimes things he says now will conflict with things he said in the past, right? But essentially, now I see people celebrating. This is almost masterfully done by Xbox, because it got people from originally saying, no, not one game. This game better not go to PlayStation 5, right? And it somehow turned into, it's only 4. It's only 4. That's not a big deal. You know
that's what I was talking about earlier, when you negotiating and you highball it, and then they negotiate back, and then you arrive at what you actually wanted. And it's kind of well, Microsoft, like I say, if the Starfield rumor hadn't gone out there, and we were going to raw dog these 4 games, and it was hi-fi and whatever, people would have freaked out, I think, then as well. you know. But the fact that everyone was expecting it was going to be Starfield and Halo and Gears and what God knows what else, the fact that it came out and it's just 4 small games, everyone claims now that they're okay with it, and instead they're mad at people who reported on
Right.
what could have happened.
I just find it was almost like, if I didn't know better, I thought like Microsoft themselves would have like leaked the Starfield stuff just so their reactions would have been lessened, because like at least people are like, oh, it's not Starfield and Indiana Jones. Oh my god. Oh, thank God. Oh my god. It's just Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush. Like it. To hear people tell it, if you wind the clock back to January, there's a lot of people but like, absolutely not. It will never go to PlayStation 5. These people don't know what they're talking about, right? Listen to Satya's quotes and listen to Phil quotes. And it was just like, no, it's happening. And now it is happening. And in fact, it's more than you thought. It's 4. But because it's not Starfield or Indiana Jones, now it's like a big victory. Everybody's taking victory laps. It's weird to see. I'll be honest. It's like, I don't really. It's like people think they won the Super Bowl or something. Like, it's just 4 games. It's only these 4. When like previously a month ago they were like about to throw out their consoles. Just the mere thought of Xbox maybe releasing, one of their games, Hi-Fi Rush, on another platform. The very, very odd behavior, if you ask me. I was just like, okay, well, whatever, I guess people came to grief. People went through their 5 stages of grief real quickly on this one.
Yeah, and it won't just be 4 games either. Everyone knows this. I mean, Phil was out here saying like, don't expect it to be more than these, and it's like, well, I kind of do, bro. Well, I kind of do expect it to be more than this, because they're kind of implying that this is a test. It's a test. They don't know how Sony's going to react. Maybe Sony will downrank the games in their store algorithm. Maybe Sony will suppress this. Maybe Sony doesn't want Microsoft to profit from their install base. Maybe they see it as a bad for competition. They don't know it's going to go down. So I suppose at the end of the day, it could be just be like, well, this isn't going to work for whatever reason, right? Because Microsoft has done these Microsoft has gone into something with expectations in the past, and then it hasn't panned out. They fully expected that Apple would allow Xbox Game Pass on iOS. They fully expected that, and they had an iOS app ready, and it was ready to go, and they're ready to publish. And then Apple was like, "What? You want to compete with us on our platform? I don't think so. You've got to put every single one of those games separately in our store, and then we get a cut of the subscription every game." And it's just like, what? And then they pivoted the whole xCloud team to very quickly put a web app together so people could get it on the web. And obviously no one's going to get it on the web, because if you don't have direct store access, your customer acquisition costs go through the roof. If your apps are on the store, they can be seen in the algorithm, and nobody goes searching on the web for things anymore. It's all through like the platform and stuff. So, and Microsoft could see here that Sony might do the same thing. Maybe Sony gatekeeps Grounded. Maybe Sony's like, we're not going to promote Grounded in the algorithm. We're not going to promote Sea of Thieves. Let's promote Helldivers 2, which is our game. And maybe no one ever even sees that those games exist. And maybe Microsoft just realizes this is not a feasible, option for us right now. But I don't think that'll happen. I think what will really happen is that actually they will do pretty well. I think Sea of Thieves especially will do well on PlayStation. And I think Microsoft will see that and start thinking like, damn, maybe we should do, I could see a world where Sea of Thieves does so well on PlayStation that it starts making them question why Forza isn't there. It starts making them question why Halo multiplayer isn't there, at least the multiplayer client or something like that. So eventually things do boil down to money, and if if this experiment, which Phil's kind of alluding to it being, pans out, then I fully expect that you'll see more games go across, and then it's the whole, what camp do you sit in that universe? Then it's like, do you think having the games, having a question mark over exclusivity will decrease interest in Xbox hardware, which is already, not the best? Or do you think it's actually fine because the console market's flat anyway? Like, there's only been 200 million console players since however many generations ago, and it hasn't really grown. And the only way they sell consoles really is to sell multiple consoles to the same people. For whatever reason, there's only ever 200 million console gamers. I don't know why. I don't know why more people don't want a console. Um, but that's just it. Like, people just don't. More people don't want a console, and when you're a publicly traded company like Sony and Microsoft fighting over the same bunch of users, just it becomes fatiguing. They have to find growth somewhere, which is why you got the Sony CEO out here talking about doing day and day on PC. Microsoft's already done that. Microsoft doesn't have the install base Sony does, but they monetize their install base very well with Game Pass and other stuff. And a more aggressive push into service games ahead of Sony, which has helped Xbox stay competitive, in terms of revenue. But that the Xbox Business Event, like I said in the intro, it's an inflection point on the whole industry, and it's become like, okay, post COVID, I think what a lot of console and video game companies expected was COVID would create a whole new market. There'd be millions more gamers. People who bought a console during COVID would become active console players, and the rest of it. And they just didn't. And it reminds me of, Rand? It reminds me of the Wii Fit craze. I remember, like, my aunt bought a Wii Fit, right? She bought a Nintendo Wii and a Wii Fit, and like everyone was buying a Wii Fit. It was kind of like it was a big trend amongst a whole new market, right? But none of those people went on to buy any software beyond Wii Fit, really. And in that universe, you're selling a plastic box which gets you zero profit. And like, I think people think in their head, it's like, oh, I've sold a $500 box. PlayStation's made $500. No, because that box costs like $480 to make. So they've only made $20 really, or something, maybe even less when you factor in everything else. And that's just not an exact figure. It's just an example of the way the industry works. You need to sell software, and if you've sold all the PlayStations and Xboxes and Nintendo Switches you can, how can you sell more software? And the only mathematical answer to that is multi-platform. It's tough, man. It's tough. I don't know where it's all going, bro. I don't know where it's all going.
Well, Phil did say that he thinks like exclusivity, or at least games tied to one platform, is going to be a thing of the past in the next 5 to 10 years, right? I mean, he did mention that, but we should mention that he was specifically asked about Starfield and Indiana Jones, if they were part of the four, which he said they weren't. But then he had an interview with Tom Warren over at The Verge, where Tom asked him this again. He said, you mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones are part of any of the four despite the rumors, but will those ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? And Phil has... He had two paragraphs here, two answers, essentially. First answer is, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these four games and learning from the experience, right? They want to see what they can get. And you mentioned that you think Sea of Thieves is probably going to do well. I think it's probably going to do well on Switch. I could see it doing better on Switch than PlayStation, to be honest with you. I think Grounded probably will do good. I really can't imagine anybody buying Pentiment. I'm sorry. I know Pentiment has its fans out there and people really like it. And it was a highly acclaimed game. I don't really think anybody on any platform was being like, please port Pentiment to my system. You know what I mean? It's just one of those like, hey, it's a nice, cool little indie game that came out in 2022 or 2022. If you were like trying to do that to make money off a game, like Pentiment's not it. And Hi-Fi Rush, I guess it depends. I could see it doing well if it was a Switch 2 launch game. Maybe it does better in Japan. Maybe if you release it the right time on PlayStation, it might do okay. So it's like, okay, we're gonna learn what we can from there. But clearly, like a game like Starfield Indiana Jones would do more. So he says, we're not going to rule anything out. He doesn't think the industry should rule out any other game to come to any other platform. Okay, fair enough. But then he says, but I don't want to create a false expression on those platforms that this is somehow the first 4 to get over the dam, and then that dam's going to open and that everything else is coming. That's not the plan today. I also don't want to mislead customers on other platforms. We're launching these 4 games, and we're excited about it. We're excited about the announce and everything else, but we'll see what happens for our business. And during this podcast, they mentioned how there is no fundamental change to our approach on exclusivity, even though they just announced 4 games going to other platforms. But there's no fundamental change to their approach on exclusivity. So Phil says we're not ruling anything out ever, right? He's not going to put his foot in his mouth and say, absolutely, Tom, Starfield's never going to come to PlayStation, and then maybe it eventually does and people call him a liar or whatever, right? So he says, we're not ruling it out, but I don't want to, say to other fans on their platforms like, oh, the dam's about to break open and other games are coming. So that's what the Indiana Jones and Starfield stuff is. I mean, I think it leaves the door open, right?
I think the reason people criticize Phil for not saying it outright, but the reason he doesn't is because they just don't know where the industry's going, right? There might be some kind of breakthrough. Imagine this, right? There's some kind of technological breakthrough with regards to energy storage, renewable energy, and all that kind of stuff. Imagine that it becomes really cheap and really trivial to make a cloud gaming platform. Imagine that it becomes so cheap and so trivial, and regulators completely force Apple to open up their shit. Imagine there's a scenario where it's just like, okay, now cloud gaming is just utterly ubiquitous, and and now there's no console anymore, But like, imagine that Xbox does that and they go full blown whatever, full blown cloud, and then they're like, well, if for people who still want a home console, maybe Sony's still flying that flag. Maybe they'll be like, okay, well then we'll put some of those games on PlayStation then for people who still want that experience. Maybe they find like a whole new market of people who prefer cloud gaming. And Microsoft did say that cloud gaming and PC Game Pass for PC are double-digit growth vectors for them right now. Which it could be 10.1% growth. That's double-digit growth, right? But still, that's because technology evolves, and Phil's a technologist at the end of the day, and he works for a big tech company, and they just don't know where the landscape's going to go, So it's like you say, he doesn't want to put his foot in his mouth because this well and truly is a test. Sony might just be like, nope, we're not going to let this work for you. And at the same time, maybe something happens to Xbox that completely collapses the whole business, and they just have no choice,
Well, yeah, they talk about like how it's for the health of the business, and that they want Xbox to be here in another 20 years and be, Phil said he wants Xbox to be here in 20 years and be healthy. So that's how they look at these sort of things, right? So It's like, all right, well, it's 4 for now. This is just a test. I think they took 4 low-risk games that not a lot of people would really have that attachment to, where it's like, okay, not many people are going to care about. Although, like I said, in January, people really did. People really did care about it. But today, not so much. And then we'll see where it goes. I think, I think it's going to be more than 4 eventually. I think my question was always a 2-parter. How often and how many, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, how many are we doing a year? What games are there? So it's like, if it's just like the style of like, okay, just community games and some smaller stuff, whatever. But if you start really like diving into the Gearses and the Forzas and the Halos and Indiana Joneses and stuff, I think you start to see a bigger pushback. But they're the ones that potentially will get people to come to your platform, so maybe you want to hold them to yourselves. But is this one of those things where I feel that Microsoft has also learned from some of their previous mistakes? And what I mean by that is, with the Xbox One launch, they tried to force everybody into their vision. Regardless, they were going to drag people kicking and streaming into this new future that Microsoft had envisioned, right? And people always push back against change. Especially when the competitor is being like, no. Everything's remaining the same. Just how you like it. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to let people just come to the conclusions that you want them to come to of their own accord. Like, Microsoft was really eager to usher in the digital revolution, and they tried to force it on people, and people violently opposed that. And now people were eventually going to go down that path themselves, and they should have just let that happen, but lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
And they did this with PC, too. I don't know if you remember when Quantum Break came to PC. When they announced Quantum Break to PC, it's kind of a very similar approach. Just one game. Doesn't really mean other games are coming. And then obviously, eventually, as we know, it was all of them because they started the Xbox Play Anywhere initiative, right?
Which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah. Very similar to Sony's messaging about PC, where Herman Hulst basically said, hey, just because we're bringing Horizon Zero Dawn to PC doesn't mean we're bringing all of our games to PC. And, it did mean that, at least eventually. I know they haven't brought every single one of their games to PC, but clearly they're bringing more and more of their games to other platforms.
And the success of Helldivers 2 is going to open the floodgates to day one.
So maybe it was a test back then, but it was something they wanted to do because they wanted to get more revenue, and they saw what happened. They're like, we need to do this with more stuff. So Xbox is setting up with 4 low-risk games where it's like nobody's really going to lose their minds over these 4. And, hey, we're saying it's a test. Who knows? Maybe the test goes bad. Maybe it goes so bad that it really discourages us from putting any of our other games on any other platforms or at least one platform, right? But if it goes well, maybe we can keep on doing it. And we've already kind of set the groundwork for it, right? We're just kind of taking little baby steps forward. Every time one of these happens, people become more and more conditioned to accept it, right? That's how these things go. So this could literally just be the only 4 that ever happen. That's a possible future. Or it's just the beginning. And, next year you get another 2. And the year after that, you get another 1. Or the year after that, you get 3, right? Where it's just... Xbox has so many games coming out this year, which we'll talk about in a minute, that if you just release a couple older games to other platforms, maybe people don't really care that much. If you're finally delivering on your promise of releasing all the games that you've been talking about since 2018 and 2020, that, hey, we're hitting you up with Hellblade 2 and all these other games. Are you really going to be worried that, some other game that we released 2 years ago is coming out to another platform? And with how everybody is so accepting of the 4 games coming to PlayStation right now, maybe that's just how it's going to go. Maybe this is the future of the industry, as Phil mentioned. Like, hey, there's going to be less exclusives 5-10 years from now. I mean, he even talked about Helldivers 2, about who does it help that the game's not on Xbox or whatever. And be like, well, it helps PlayStation, I would assume, right?
But does it though? I mean, is Helldivers going to be a system seller? Because like we've established, from PS2 to PS5, there's only ever been 200 million users. And Sony can saturate that market and sell 200 million PlayStation consoles. I'm sure they will.
But maybe it sells
from there.
Maybe it sells PlayStation Plus subscriptions. Right? Because
but then imagine if they've got to imagine if they get 100% attach rate on that. Where'd you grow from there?
I understand that.
The answer is PC.
Sure.
So you might as well do it now sooner rather than later.
I'm just you look at Sony has stopped reporting PlayStation Plus subscriber numbers because they're not growing, right? But PlayStation also they don't make first-party multiplayer games until now, right? And Helldivers seems to be a big hit. Well, they don't. Like, last generation, they didn't. I mean, I guess you could say Uncharted 4 had...
I mean, Helldivers, you have to remember, Arrowhead is not a PlayStation studio either.
No, they aren't. But typically, Sony doesn't make, multiplayer experiences that even require PlayStation Plus. They relied on third parties to push that with their games, like Call of Duty and the Grand Theft Autos. So now it's like, here's a game from, that Sony owns the IP of, and maybe they're like, while it may not push PS5 consoles, maybe it could push PlayStation Plus subscriptions because you need that on console to actually play the game. And I feel like it's beneficial for it to be on PC because I feel like the reports, even though it's detrimental, like I actually saw Kotaku come out and defend Starfield for once because they're like, no, reporting on Starfield's lack of players is stupid or whatever, because I think some websites like Starfield's lost 97% of its players or whatever, and it's like that part of the reporting of like the games losing their user base, especially for single player games over a period of time, is so stupid. But I feel like if a game hits big, like I feel like the constant reporting of the Pal World numbers on Steam every single day, almost every single hour, actually built into the hype of the game and actually sold people on checking out the game. And I think it's doing it in a very similar way for Helldivers 2, where it's like it's this constant, more people are playing it, even more people are playing it. Well, I should check this out, right?
It's FOMO, baby.
And that only works on Steam because they're the ones who have the open platform for it, where you can see the numbers, where all the stuff would be hidden on Xbox and PlayStation and Switch. Nobody would really knows how popular games are unless you kind of look at the most played chart, but then you look at the most played chart and you don't really have a comparison. Like, okay, Fortnite's number 1 and this game's number 10, and what's the difference in users? Nobody knows because you don't know where to begin. But Steam is giving you exact numbers. And every time I look on Twitter, I got Shinobi telling me about the numbers of Helldivers. I got Akami telling me. I got PMS Jordan telling me. I got whoever else. It's every time I turn it on, I'm just seeing more and more people are playing Helldivers 2. And I think that leads to more and more people checking it out, not only on PC, but also on PlayStation. So it's a win-win, right?
Yes.
Granted, okay, you could look at the worst case scenario where, like, if nobody was playing it, then maybe that, like, nobody's playing this game, so, like, nobody wants to pick it up because nobody's playing it. But for a game that's successful, I think it absolutely is really beneficial to the game. Like,
yeah, for sure.
And like, PC is just going to be more, like, especially with PlayStation stuff, is just going to be more and more visible there. But I don't even know how this industry looks in 10 years, Jez, 15 years. Like, we really could be looking at, like, hey, everybody's games are on everybody's platform. And, like, you basically choose the platform that you want based on the things that, matter to you most? Whose controller do you like better? Whose services do you like better? Who has the better, like those sort of things, maybe it's because
we already live in that universe. There's already a comparable industry where you can look to describe that situation, and that's the mobile phones. It's not like Android or iOS has any amount of meaningful exclusive apps. I mean, iOS has got like, I don't know, Procreate or something maybe, and for drawing, but it's not like there aren't good alternatives on Android as well. But the vast majority of the apps you want to use are on both Android and iOS, right? And they compete on the sort of the experience. Then some people prefer Android, the ability to sideload and actually customize your phone and actually have options for choosing hardware and actually having good cameras and good battery life. I go on, Android's better. And then there's people who prefer iOS, which is, yeah. But but the point being is that they don't have exclusive content necessarily, But I suppose like Apple has started doing its exclusive TV shows and stuff, to try and, I don't know, lock people in. But that's the thing. Like, it's not as if we're ever going to be in a scenario where I think there'll be zero exclusives. I think it's what Phil said. There'll be less exclusives, but I think I really do believe that like things like Halo and Forza, the sort of iconic franchises that you associate with Xbox and Gears, I think those are kind of, in a way, what define the very brand and the very sort of, the Xbox experience, beyond the controller, beyond the hardware, and the ecosystem, and where your friends play, which is ultimately the reason why people buy consoles for the most part, is where do my friends play? Well, they play over here, so I'm going to play over there as well, So yeah, I tend to agree with Phil that it probably will go down that route. You've also got to think of this, Rand. You got Tim Stewart, good old Tim Stewart, Mister, started the. Tim Stewart was the one who really started all this, so everyone go and be mad at him instead. But Tim Stewart, speaking to Wells Fargo, he was like, "Yeah, we're going to start bringing our games out on the platforms and stuff," which is a hint of the philosophy. But it's not like Microsoft was shy about this. I mean, Satya Nadella said to the FTC under oath, he said, I have no love for that world, of exclusive software, because Windows is an open platform. It's kind of what, Microsoft's mission is to build the tools that let people create, right? That's their kind of mission. And closed platforms are kind of antithetical to that. But yeah, I'm just sort of rambling now.
It's okay. I'll get us back on track, because they mentioned one of the other things that was going around, and this is maybe why people were upset with the rumors, right? Because some of the rumors were true. You have 4 games going to PlayStation and Switch, and people were saying that, and it's happening, right?
All my rumors were true.
Right? Thanks. But there's also rumors floating about changes maybe to Game Pass. Maybe they were going to remove day one games from the lower tiers. Maybe something like Call of Duty wouldn't even be in Game Pass at all. Those were sort of all things.
Where did all those come from? I don't even know where that.
I'm just saying they were out there. People were talking about them. But they came out and they reassured everybody that Xbox games will always be on Xbox, and that they're going to be in Game Pass on day one, first-party games. So I assume that means the Call of Duty that's coming out this year will be day one on Game Pass, right? I mean, they explicitly mention first-party games will be day one. They also finally gave us a number, 34 million for Game Pass subscribers. And the first ABK game to come to Game Pass is going to be Diablo 4. I think it was on March 28th. Now, you said that would coincide with the new season 4 coming out or whatever?
No, see, I think season 4 comes out a bit later, but it's like, or a bit earlier. It doesn't coincide directly, but it will kind of help, right? Because from what I've heard is that season 4 is going to be a big one with a lot of big changes, new itemization the community's been asking for, and a bunch of other stuff. It's almost like, it's the one that even Blizzard's looking forward to. So to have season 4 launch in or around the Game Pass launch, that could do some serious numbers. I think like that'll bring a lot of hype back to the game if it is indeed as good as what I've heard. And again, don't want to put rumors out there and everyone's like, oh, season 4 sucks, but just said it was good. I'm just repeating what I've heard. Don't be angry at me. Don't shoot the messenger.
Right.
But yeah, it could do some serious numbers, man.
Yeah. And Matt Booty even mentioned that they have like 10 games launching this year. Did you catch that part?
I did not catch that part.
Yeah, he said it. He said at the end that they have something like 10 games launching this year.
First party?
Yeah, and he mentioned, Hellblade 2. Yeah. He mentioned Aura History Untold. He mentioned Avowed. But then he also mentioned like Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred. So when they mean 10 releases, I wonder if they're also, because like I'm trying to figure out what the 10 are, right? Just for like a game, shits and giggles, right? You got Hellblade 2, you got Avowed, you have Our History Untold, that's 3. You have Indiana Jones, that's 4. Basically, those 4 games were at the Direct, right? Towerborn, 5 would be the 5th one.
World 2.
What game?
Pal World 2.
No. What would be other 5? Like he mentioned Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred. So the expansion, I guess, would count as a major release. So that would be 6. Call of Duty this fall would be 7. Is there an Elder Scrolls expansion? If so, that probably counts, right, as 1. Because if is there a Call of Duty mobile release this year? If so, that would be probably another one.
World of
Warcraft War Within would be, if you're including expansions, the sorts of blurs the line a little bit. But maybe there's other announced games that they might talk about at, the June showcase, which they announced as well. So, I mean, 10 games is a lot, right? Whether or not they're like full-on releases or expansions to existing games. I don't know if there's like any more, like, is there going to be a Forza Horizon 6 this year? Is there going to be a Gears collection this year? Or are those more like looking out, for next year's stuff? So, the other thing they talked about was hardware, Jez.
Yes, hardware.
And Sarah Bond had a really interesting quote. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it, because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we're going to be building like a, very, very powerful Xbox or whatever, right? Which is kind of something they say every single year. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? So, oh yeah. Xbox claims its next console will be, quote, the largest technical leap you have ever seen, which is a very bold statement, and that they also have exciting stuff coming out in hardware. So she goes on to say that there's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday, and we're also invested in the next generation roadmap, and what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building.
I bet it's gonna have ChatGPT or some bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the technological leap. It's got ChatGPT. Some bullshit. I don't know. But nah, I'm just kidding. I don't know what they mean by that. But I mean, it's I think like the cool thing about this show was that a lot of it was sort of almost like a checklist of responding directly to feedback from the backlash. It was like they addressed Starfield. They addressed the fears that they were gonna, deprioritize hardware. They addressed everything that everyone was kind of fearful about, from various quarters and stuff. And I think they did a really good job of it. I think I wrote something like, "This is going to be like one of the most difficult threading of the needle PR performances that Xbox will have ever done, in the post 2013 era." And I think they pretty much nailed it, to be quite honest with you. I wanted to hear about hardware because I honestly don't really care personally if games are exclusive. I know a lot of people do. I don't. My issue with the exclusivity is, if there's no exclusives, will people want an Xbox? And if people don't want an Xbox, then there'll be less third-party games, and then it becomes a downward spiral, like the app gap from Windows Phone days. That was my concern. I don't care if every single game goes on PlayStation personally. I think more people playing, the better. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that, it might make people not want to buy hardware. And if people don't want to buy hardware, then that means I'm not going to get hardware. And I'm selfish, Rand, and I want hardware.
Mm-hmm.
But they made a very strong commitment to hardware. And, I would hope that they follow through with that. I think the weird thing that we never really hear from Xbox and stuff is like, they constantly bang on about, PC and cloud and expanding, finding all these new audiences and all this kind of stuff. We very rarely hear them big up their own ecosystem that they currently already have.
Yeah,
they don't talk about it very much. I mean, the SEC filings, they do say like, we've got more console players than ever, which is great. But we don't really hear about it, much of it beyond that. We don't really hear much these days about what new features are you working on for Xbox consoles. Rather than moving the tiles around a bit on the dashboard. What new plans have you got for all this kind of stuff? And there's a lot of stuff about the Xbox One that they talked about before that just didn't pan out, like ray tracing. How many games actually use ray tracing on Xbox? What happened to direct storage? What happened to all that kind of stuff? All these kind of features that Xbox was supposed to have that just didn't really amount to anything but buzzwords in the end. So yeah. It's kind of, I don't know, man. I'm kind of glad that they at least did address some of this stuff, and that shows they're listening. But it comes back to, substance and proof in the pudding and all that kind of stuff, I guess. I mean, how did you, Rand?
How did I what?
I want to know, like, how did you feel about... First of all, how did you feel about the podcast purely from an analytical perspective? Like, did they pull it off? And how did you feel about it in terms of like having confidence in the future of the direction of the ecosystem?
I mean, I thought the podcast was, I thought it accomplished what their goals probably were for, right? Because it really was just an explanation about 4 games going to other platforms and kind of talking about the reasons being why they are. And like, for anybody that like, because I did see some people like, why they can't even name them? It's more likely because it's tied up in like marketing for...
Some of them's going to be announced at the
They're
Direct,
going to be at like, some of them are going to be at the Direct, and it's probably like they can't really talk about it, so they'll let the teams announce it, or if Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush are at a Direct, they'll let Nintendo do it because that's what it is. So I think if the goal was to like explain to people that Xbox is evolving and to quash some of the fears of the hardcore, then I think it absolutely accomplished that goal. Because like I said, you had people in January losing their minds about the idea of some of these games going to PlayStation that now have basically running around saying it's only 4 games, just 4, suck it ponies, right?
And then being mad at me for
and then being mad at anybody else. Like, so in that regards, it worked, right? It's like, okay, we threaded the message, we left the door open. Okay, these are just a test. These are reasons why we're doing it. The industry's changing. Who knows what the industry looks like in 5 to 10 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Game Pass, everything's day one, all, first-party games, so, like, none of that stuff changing because that was going to be a worry for some people. And then, hey, we got hardware. People like me and you where it's like, I don't really have a problem at all with Xbox games on other platforms at all. Like, I personally don't care. Like, if somebody gets to play Hi-Fi Rush on their PlayStation 5. I disagree because I think potentially that negates the reason to own Xbox hardware, which you already explained, right? The death spiral. We're like, well, less people buy the Xbox hardware because there's less of a reason to own one, and then third parties support it less, and then now I'm losing out on games I should be getting, essentially, or that I want to play, right? That was why I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, right? It's just like, could this work out for them? Absolutely. Like, this could be the best decision they ever made. They could be making tons of monies, and they can reinvest it and make sequels and new hardware and all that stuff. Or,
exactly. It's like, how because one of the issues that Xbox has is that the games don't have the same kind of budgets that Sony has, because they don't have the same kind of size platform to play with that Sony has, potentially, or at least not for a while.
I don't know. I mean, you heard those rumors that Halo Infinite was like $500 million, right? Or whatever it was.
Well, okay,
I can't imagine. I also kind of think Fable's probably super expensive considering how long they've been working on that game.
Let's not talk about Halo. Okay. Halo doesn't count. But imagine like some of the smaller studios, like I don't know. I mean, I talked about like before in the past about how Obsidian, could get to the next level. If it was like, if it grew and it had a big studio, and I think it was Josh Sawyer who tweeted something out like, I'd love to have Baldur's Gate 3 budget to make a Pillars 3. The only way you're going to get that kind of budget out of Microsoft is if you hit certain levels of income. So Tim Stewart's there like, oh yeah, guys, we need you to sell 1 billion consoles, but by the way, billion games, but you can only sell it on these 2 platforms. When like the studio heads are probably sitting there tearing their, especially the acquired studios who are previously multi-platform, they're probably sitting there tearing the hair out, being like, man, I could totally hit these numbers and these targets if I could only sell on PlayStation. So maybe there's a universe where like some of the studios that don't have a cash flow from lack of having a service game backing them up. Like every studio's kind of got a service game that serves as their cash cow, and Bethesda's got Hi-Fi not Hi-Fi Rush. They got Fallout 76, and you've got like a bunch of other studios that have their service game cash cow that helps them get to those budget levels. But Obsidian doesn't. Obsidian doesn't have that, So like for Obsidian to get to the next level,
well, they got grounded.
Yeah, but it doesn't have microtransactions or nothing.
I mean, that's true.
And like you're probably like thinking, for Obsidian, if they were able to sell some of these games further afield, maybe they could get to that level. If Avowed was launching on PlayStation as well and stuff like that. But then it comes back to what we were talking about. Like you still need the exclusives because you want to try and attract people to your ecosystem so they'll get Game Pass in the first place.
Which they even sort of, I think it was Matt who talked about this idea of like, we offer some of these games to the other platforms, and then fans on that platform might be like, oh, these are Xbox games, like maybe I should check out Xbox. Oh, Game Pass, like, oh, well, I could, like that idea of like, here's these games. Should I really want to play full price from here, or I could play them over here for cheaper, or maybe I become a fan of Xbox games. So instead of waiting for them to come to my platform,
because it's still a fan-driven business, you know.
Right. But you mentioned how, like, do I think they did a good job or they nailed it? I think, yeah, clearly you see how the reaction to everybody online is mostly pretty happy with it. A lot of people said it was a giant nothing burger, right?
Which is what they want, really.
Which is what they want.
When you're announcing change, you want people to think it's a nothing
But
burger.
also, you know, and like I said, we were. There's been some talk against insiders. I want to say thank you, insiders, for telling us that this was happening, because I couldn't imagine nobody knowing about this and then springing this on an unaware Xbox audience that tunes in and be like, wait a minute, why are they doing an Xbox business event? Why is there this podcast? What's this here for? People knew what we were expecting when we were going in. The thing is, people were expecting worse, right? People were expecting, like, oh my God, it's literally all the games. Oh my God, they're changing Game Pass and they're not going to have any more day one stuff. Like, people's expectations were so bad that what you ended up getting was so just small in comparison that you were okay with it, right? But imagine if nobody had mentioned this at all. Imagine there was Nate the Hate never put these rumors out, or Steven Totillo never did. There was no talk about Xbox games coming to other platforms. And then one day you just saw, hey, join us for an Xbox business update on this day in a podcast. And you'd be sitting there thinking, wait, why are we doing an Xbox business update? What's going on? And then you tune in, and the first thing you hear is like, hey, by the way, guess what? 4 games that were on Xbox are now coming to other platforms. People would have been irate, because they were certainly irate when the rumors came out. So maybe it was almost good that the rumors were put out by insiders, because it helped.
Yeah, and also Microsoft wouldn't have even had a frame of reference for things they had to address.
I know. Yeah,
so
think about that.
Yeah,
think about
leakers
that.
Are good. Everyone should be thanking leakers.
Think about that. You should be thanking Nate the Hate for putting out that rumor and getting everything going, because now it's like, oh, this was nothing. And you know what also helped? Honestly, realistically, maybe the thing that helped out a lot was Sony's results literally the day before.
Oh yeah,
and what the CEO was having to say about the things that were going on, right? Like, their COO was basically being like, I mean, he almost seemed like he was calling out his own studios. They're like, you know, that he basically said their studios need to improve when it comes to business. I don't know if that was a shot at Jim Ryan or the studios or whatever. Yeah, what he goes, he says, it's been about 4 months since I became chairman, and I'm trying to demonstrate leadership and have as many meetings as possible with the management teams. I've also visited studios, and everyone's working really hard to fulfill their responsibility to try to optimize the business. I understand that. But overall growth and sustainability, profitability for increasing margins, how will that translate to these goals? I don't think people understand that deeply. I think that's the problem of the organization. So as far as I'm concerned, I try to understand what's happening in the company and the industry, and also from the perspective of analysis, and try to explain that in a transparent manner so that people can recognize and notice these issues so that we can have a harmonized approach going forward. You know, so basically, he says, I think there's room for improvement, and that's to do with how to use the money, the schedule of development, and how to fulfill one's accountability towards development, right? Because Sony came in under expectations. They didn't sell as many PlayStations as they did before. There's talk that, like, the PlayStation's at its later half of its life cycle, which I guess makes sense because going in its fourth year.
That's what they said.
Right, that's what they said, right? They're talking about, like, profitability. They're saying that they're expecting PS5 sales to decline, that there's no existing major franchise titles before April of next year. Now, granted, that doesn't mean there's not going to be games releasing this year after Stellar Blade for PlayStation. I think Jeff Grubb put it out that there might be an Astrobot game, and I think Nick has talked about, like, Uncharted 1 being remade, or like the God of War collection being remade or whatever. But I mean, they're saying don't expect, like, Ghost 2 or Death Stranding 2 or any of this sort of stuff. So it's like their games are taking a while. Their business is taking a hit. Their margins are razor thin. They can't really drop the price of the PS5. And this is a company that sold 21 million PlayStations in that year. They sold like 8 million in that quarter, and they're still having issues, right? Like nobody's like Xbox is like, all right, here's what we think the future is. The future might be less exclusives. We're gonna run some tests. Maybe those tests come back negative and we don't do any more. Maybe they're positive and release more games on Xbox. But guess what? We want you to know, Xbox fans, you're still going to have Game Pass. You're still going to have Day One. You're still going to have... They talked a lot about cross-progression and cross-save. So I sort of wonder if, like, you play any of these games on PlayStation. Like, really, if you load up Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation, you should be forced to make a Microsoft account. Go towards those MAUs, bro. Especially if you're trying to, like, maybe then use a sequel.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
Isn't that the case with Minecraft Dungeons?
I think that is. I don't know. I don't know if it is because I didn't play that game on PlayStation. But so
someone in chat can maybe inform us.
So you have Xbox being like, okay, this is the way we sort of see it. We need to do this because of the health of the business. Phil wants to leave the Xbox business super healthy, and it's 20 years down the road, and we got hardware, don't worry about that. And there's even rumors that there's a handheld coming, and they're talking about how powerful the hardware is, which, hey, I like to hear, even though they say it every single time. They said it with the One X, and they said it with the Series X. It's just, hey, is this going to be the hardware that eats monsters for breakfast? Is that how they're going to sell this one? But then Nintendo's doing great. But then now Nintendo's Switch 2 might be delayed until next year. Is that issues? Are they why would you delay it from the holiday to March? I mean, I know it worked for them last time releasing in March, but is there something up with the economy? Now PlayStation themselves, they're kind of like, hey, we sold 21 million PlayStations, but the CEO is talking about we need to be more multi-platform. He's talking about, embracing PC more, talking about being there where there's compute. You see the success of Helldivers. They're going to be like Day One on PC. It's only a matter of time before like they just go embrace Day One on PC completely, right? Like the industry is shifting and changing in ways that, people who enjoyed the 2012 model of you buy the box and you get the game and you can determine who wins by who sells the most. And like that model is essentially pretty much dead at this point, right? It's not about that anymore. But people still look at it like this, like exclusives, and clinging on to the idea of like this defines you, and exclusives do define platforms for sure, which is why, Jez mentioned, you don't really see a way like Forza or Gears or Halo jump platforms, but I mean, you never say never. I mean, Phil wouldn't rule out Starfield or Indiana Jones, even though he said, like, don't assume this means more are coming, but the door is open for that. I think, yeah, I mean, who knows? The industry 10, 15 years from now might be a completely different place.
Here's what I think. I think Microsoft does want to do that. But, like, it's literally like Satya Nadella said. He said, we don't do it because the competition doesn't want to do it. I think, like, what would have to happen for them to achieve this is for Microsoft to just go to the competing platforms and say, look, we can all make more money if we stop being dicks, right? And you put Helldivers on Xbox, and then we'll put this on PlayStation. And, we agree that it's better for our service games to have as big of an install base as possible, and we can all grow together, And maybe when this whole console war stuff is over, maybe then we start seeing that the console industry as a whole grows. Maybe we start getting more people coming in because they start perceiving it as this sort of like weird little tribal thing that it is now, and sort of start seeing it a little bit more like PC. Like these are basically PCs, like PlayStation and Xbox, x86, they're basically PCs, Xbox is Windows based, PlayStation is Unix based, or whatever it is, Linux, I don't know. And then you've got Steam, but Steam has already crossed this Rubicon, as Rand likes to call it.
Yeah.
Steam is building a console that has both PlayStation and Xbox exclusives and its own exclusives in games like CSGO and Dota and stuff like that. CSGO, well, I don't think CSGO is on console, is it? I don't think so.
There is
But
a
like,
CS:GO on a Counter-Strike game on console, or at least there
yeah,
was. I don't know if
I don't know. I know they bought the orange box to console or whatever, but you know, like there's a hell of a lot of exclusive games on Steam that aren't on Xbox and Xbox and PlayStation for whatever reason. You know, pure PC games and also games that are just, you know, indie games that haven't made a console version yet and whatever, like, and stuff like that. Whereas like on Steam Deck, you're gonna get everything, you know. And yeah, sure, the Steam Deck's not isn't a particularly great place to play a game like God of War. You know, it doesn't run that super well, but you have to imagine that in the years to come, Steam Deck 2, Steam Deck 3, they're going to be powerful enough to offer experiences that are sort of approaching what you could get with a device that you put under your TV, while also being similarly priced, while also offering the mobile modality, you know, the take it with you feature that you can't do with the PlayStation or Xbox today. So the walls are breaking down, you know, whether Sony or Xbox like it or not. Xbox has usually been like, Xbox is kind of forced to adopt change more quickly, I suppose, because they do have the smaller platform. But like, we keep seeing Sony follow suit after the fact anyway. You know, they did the subscription service after the fact. They're doing PC simultaneous launches after the fact. You know, and you know, after Helldiver's success, you know that PlayStation's going to do it because it just makes pure cold hard sense. You know, if you're buying a billboard for God of War, and you know it's only got one platform, you know, you're basically saying like, you're basically excluding large parts of the audience for that billboard. You know, it's really funny. Like when I see like a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth poster in England, and it's like platforms PlayStation 5, I just kept sitting there thinking like, the return on investment in that marketing is minuscule than it would have been if it was on Xbox and PC at the same time, which is why you've got Square Enix out here like, oh yeah, we're going to start doing simultaneous launches now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole industry might be going this way. Maybe Steam is what started it. Steam is probably driving it, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing as long as I still keep getting hardware, because all of my games are locked to the Xbox operating system. They're never going to be able to go to PC because of the licenses. And, you know, Microsoft only has licenses for those games and those backwards compatible games as long as they exist forever on on an Xbox operating system as defined by the licensing agreement. So as long as I keep getting that, I don't care what happens. You know, more money for everyone, more, and you know, bigger, better games and all that kind of stuff in order to grow. Great, but just, you know, as long as the hardware sticks around, I'm good for it. You know.
Yeah, we got Tom Warren with the super chat says, "Get some beers in, lads. Keep up the good work."
Hey, thanks,
So
Tom.
Tom's listening.
I haven't had a drink for ages, man.
Yeah, you haven't had a drink for ages.
Yeah, a long time now. Not because I've quit or anything. I just haven't had the opportunity, I guess.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much, you know, the 22-minute podcast they did. It was a little bit shorter than I was expecting. I actually didn't know what to expect, but it was a little bit shorter than I was expecting. But I think they accomplished what they set out to do, because judging from everybody, I guess the big question, and I asked this earlier when before we started, is like, did people overreact? And you know, I think the answer to that question is, you know, yes, assuredly.
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think people did overreact because.
Well, hold on. No, I mean in the sense of like, I saw people sending death threats to people.
Oh well, yeah,
You
of
know,
course.
so I
But
mean, like,
that's a minority of people who took it that far, I would say. I mean, there were people who were selling their consoles and throwing it in the trash and
hey,
doing all that kind
let
of
them do
stuff.
it. It's their. I don't really have a I don't really have a problem with people expressing how they felt about like the idea of the games going elsewhere, or if, like, hey, their hardware, if they want to sell it, let them sell it. It's theirs. They bought it. They own it, right? If you want to get rid of
Yeah,
it, whatever.
yeah, whatever. But I think like the reaction was really to that idea that Starfield would go further afield, because then it's like, it could be anything, and then if it's everything all at once, everything everywhere all at once, then
Well, they
that's the
did.
kind of 2013 chaos you were talking about, where people don't want to, you know if you're going to create change, it has to come gradually, because um you know people don't accept it.
I mean, that is true. I mean, they did even mention in their town hall meeting Xbox everywhere. Every screen's an Xbox now, which is sort of an evolution of their strategy of wanting to bring games everywhere to every platform. Now it's like every screen is an Xbox, right? So
That meeting did not go over well at ABK, let me tell you.
yeah, no, it didn't.
No.
I mean, what do people expect? They can't really tell people what their plans are, because you got people out there that are going to report it, like that dastardly Tom Warren. Like, you can't
Yeah.
you can't tell the employees anything because it's going to leak. So, and what are you going to do? What they did not like about it?
um I don't want to go into it, but
Okay.
um
Rumors. People don't like rumors no more. So, like,
yeah, we don't like
they
rumors.
don't
I
like.
mean, it's not because of the content. It was more because of like again, the vagueness, the corporate speak, the lack of
Sure,
information, and
sure.
it's controlled because of things like leaks and stuff like that. But what you gonna do? Leaker's gonna leak, right?
Leaker's gonna leak. Yeah. We got Face 23 BKY in the super chat. Says Phil was talking in circles, saying one thing on the podcast and says something else in a Tom Warren interview, and then calling out Sony, saying who does it help that Helldivers 2 is not an Xbox. It won't stop at just 4 games. Oh, I know, Face. You want it to be like all the games. I know you do, Face. You're evil, maniacal laughing right now, hoping that
Well,
it's gonna be everything. And I tend to agree it's not gonna stop at 4. If we get to 2026 and it's still only 4, I'll be shocked. Right? Or if we, because like next gen, at least Xbox is supposed to be starting in 2026. I would imagine it's going to be more than 4 games. But they did sort of being like, well, maybe it sees only 4, depending on how these tests go. But if a test goes really well, 4 turns into 8 real quickly. And then 8 turns into 16 maybe real quickly too, So,
I mean, that Phil Spencer quote is cherry picked, man. He did say that he gets it because they do it too. And it's just an echo of what Satya Nadella said about they have to do exclusives because the competition does exclusives. They are clearly cognizant of the idea that at least some people buy consoles for their exclusives. Microsoft will claim that it's not the case, or that it's a small amount of people, but I really do think like you have to look at 2013 and the lessons from that. They had no spreadsheet available to them in 2013 that said people were going to react the way they did to the Xbox One. They had no spreadsheet for that. They had no spreadsheet about the complete collapse in support that they had, in the viral collapse in support. Like you had Major Nelson going around to YouTubers' houses, bringing Xbox One consoles there. Like, it's so strange, man. So strange. Imagine that now in current year. Imagine Phil turning up to a YouTuber's house to apologetically with an Xbox to be like, "We're sorry we put Starfield on PlayStation." It just wouldn't happen. but they had to have learned lessons from that, and how like sometimes all their information might be faulty, and that when the real world plays differently.
Yeah. Sith Lord, member for 12 months. The Xbox 2 podcast that doesn't spread fake news, unlike some other podcasts that spreads fake news on Saturday afternoon. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Mescalado says, what are the chances that this was a psyop? Microsoft freaked from the reaction to Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush multiplat leak bigger titles to quell the anger from relief of the comparison. Jez was measured and ripe. Peeps can suck it. I mean, I sort of didn't. I sort of, I said, what did I say? If I knew any better, I would have thought Microsoft leaked it themselves to get people more upset, so they can come in and like underneath everything and be like, see, it's not so bad, everybody. You guys thought it was this, but it's actually only this. But no, I don't think that's the case. You know, I know everybody likes to say everything's like a false flag operation now, or a psyop or whatever. That's the cool new thing. Everything's some sort of conspiracy. Yeah, but I don't think so. I think who was ever leaking it was probably concerned about the direction everything was going in, and yeah.
Or they wanted to cause chaos.
Or they just wanted to see the world burn and the Xbox community burn. Chiefman says Killer Instinct needs to go to PlayStation 2. I would imagine if a Killer Instinct 2 exists, Killer Instinct 2 will be day one multi-platform.
Is Tom Warren in the chat?
I don't know. Is Tom Warren here? Why? Because if you say something, will he say something? He's going to report it?
He might do.
Yeah.
No. Like, Tom Warren's the person to ask about Killer Instinct 2.
Tom Warren, what's going on with Killer Instinct 2, buddy?
Well, we did say on this podcast, actually, like, was it over the summer? I said, like, if they do a Killer Instinct 2, it absolutely has to be multi-platform, because that's where the fighting game community is.
Yeah, the fighting game community is on PlayStation, so...
Yeah, it has to be multi-platform. That is one game that... everyone was mad at me about that at the time. You know, do you remember, Rand? Do you remember? Yeah. But it's like, seriously, like, you seriously not going to put a fighting game onto PlayStation? That just doesn't make any sense. You know, these games have to be everywhere. And, you know, considering PlayStation owns Evo now, it's kind of like a moot point. But yeah, Tom Warren's a person to ask about Killer Instinct 2, I think.
I mean, if the option was you don't get a Killer Instinct 2... Although, Tom's in chat. Tom, Jez wanted me to ask you about Killer Instinct 2. I said I think Killer Instinct 2, if it does exist and does release, I think it'll be multi-platform day one. Because the fighting game community is on PlayStation, and I think it's best for the game, for that game specifically, you know, every game's different, for that game to be on every platform. And probably not, and I know they did free-to-play for the first one, but I think this one is you probably charge for, you know?
I agree.
So we'll see if Tom Warren says anything. Jez, let me know if Tom says anything, because I lost my spot over here. Let's see. We have Supernova saying switching to the next Nintendo Switch is inevitable. Pokemon are coming to you, Rand. And I was thinking, like, would I really get the Switch 2? But I don't have to worry about thinking about that until next year at this point. You know?
I'm not getting it, bro. I'm done. I'm done with Nintendo. I've grown up.
Okay.
If my Pokemon doesn't have guns in it now, I don't want it.
Okay. Face says Sony is following Xbox. There are no rumors of games going to Xbox. They don't put their games day one on a retail subscription. They don't put single player games on PC day one. So when is Sony doing day one on PC? Time frame? I mean, at some point. They didn't do day one PC games at all, Face, and then they did. At some point, it's like they never did it, and then they are. What's the time frame on it? I wouldn't be surprised if something like Wolverine hits, and that's day one on PC, right? I mean, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if something like Death Stranding 2 is day one on PC.
I mean, I think that is a shoe-in for day one PC. But
maybe
Decima Engine, all this stuff has already sort of got a PC hooks and stuff. Like they're set up for it,
But you see how
all this stuff is ready to go.
But you see how fast these things move, Face? Last year there were no rumors about Xbox games going to PlayStation. Suddenly, in January of this year, there was, and then a month later they confirmed it. Just because there are no rumors right now about PlayStation games going to Xbox or whatever, doesn't mean there won't be in the future, because shit can turn on a dime, as we've just seen. So just because they've never done something before,
CEO.
yeah, things change, man. It is what it is. Zeo Mafia says, Jez, you mentioned last week that you got back into WWE. Who's your favorite wrestler currently, and why is it Cody Rhodes?
Well, it's not Cody Rhodes.
It's not Cody?
I hate the baby faces, man.
Yeah.
I don't like baby faces. I'm not sure I'm my favorite wrestler. I really like Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is awesome. I don't know who I like out of the dudes though. I'm still jury's out on that one. Like, yeah, I have only just got back into it, so like I'm really out of the loop on a lot of the stuff there. But I'm really annoyed, Rand, because I mean, this was a no-brainer to me. I was like, okay, I'll subscribe to WWE Network and I'll get Raw and SmackDown. But they don't have their own fucking shows on WWE Network until a month after the fact. That is so strange. Can you tell me another subscription service on Earth where the company doesn't even get their own stuff? That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, and the only way to get it is on the internet, at least, is via a £40 a month subscription to TNT. I am paying £40 a month for that. This is why piracy is so popular, man. It's crazy. But yeah, WWE is on the up and up, I think, at the moment.
I just saw this tweet, which I think is kind of funny, from Mike Minotti. He goes, I do think it's a little wild that people were saying that Xbox is going to publish more games on other platforms, and then they announced that they're going to publish more games on other platforms. And a lot of people's takeaway is, quote, this is why you can't trust rumors, end quote. Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. Yeah.
True, though. It's damn true, man.
Damn true. Yes, it is. We have JD Gamer. When do you think we'll get new tiers to Game Pass, like one that includes Ubisoft and World of Warcraft? Also, when do you think we'll get more acquisitions, and who might they be? Acquisitions.
That's interesting. Someone was talking about, was it Forbes put out an article saying that Microsoft should buy the Power World developers?
I think it was, yeah. Or he thought it was going to happen, or at least they would try, or something.
I think that's a good one. Pocket Pair is probably a good one. You get your own version of Pokemon right there. I mean, there might be some legal issues to deal with, but maybe not, because Nintendo ain't done shit. Parody's gonna parody, man. Pocket Pair would be a good one, I think. I really like the idea of them picking up more Japanese studios, maybe even a publisher. But we'll see what happens. I think they're kind of avoiding more acquisitions right now because of all the crap with the FTC. But yeah, we'll see what happens with all that.
Yeah, as far as new tiers to Game Pass, I mean, the problem with doing new tiers to Game Pass is you have to come up with new perks for it, right? And what perks could you give? I mean, I guess you'd say, yeah, Ubisoft Plus, but would EA really like that? If they made a new tier where it's like, okay, this tier is now $20, and on top of you get Ubisoft Plus, would EA like the idea that then Ubisoft games are on a higher tier than theirs? Maybe EA has like exclusivity on publishers' games within Game Pass or something, right? And so I don't know, because in my mind, when all the rumors were floating around about like Xbox changing Game Pass, in my mind, what I thought they could do, like I have this whole vision in my head of what Game Pass might look like in 5 years. You have like a super low tier that's $5 that's ad supported. And I know ad supported is a dirty word, but you look at all the streaming services out there, they all have some ad supported tier, right? And like Tim Stewart's even talked about that. So in my mind, it's some really cheap tier where you have to watch some ads before you play a Game Pass game, whether it's on your console, whether it's on your mobile device or whatever, right? And then you'd have like the individual, okay, we have the console tier and we have the PC tier individually, right? But what I thought they could do was we're removing day one games from the individual tiers. So it's just the library. Like you sign up for this amount and you just get the library, right? And because we're going to make day one games an exclusive perk of, you know, you could say Ultimate and raise the price, where Ultimate gets you the combination of both. You get the day one games and you get, you know, Game Pass Core.
I don't think they'll do that.
Right. Let me just explain.
Let
me just explain. Okay. You cut me off. You got my explanation here, Jessica. I know it's not going to happen, but then I thought to myself,
makes sense even hypothetically.
But then I thought to myself, you know what? If you're, I think it's something like 80% of the people are already subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate or whatever. The number's really high. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but I was like, well, would you want to put that day one games in the Ultimate tier? Maybe you create like a tier that's Xbox Game Pass Extreme, where it gets you everything and day one, and it's like $25 or something, right? Where you could have those sort of things. I also want to mention, you know, Xbox, we didn't really touch on this, but they mentioned 34 million subs for Game Pass. We finally got an update after 2 years. And it does include core numbers. So the amount of people that were on core that got added into that. So they were at 25 million in January of 2022. Now they're at 34 million 2 years later with Game Pass Core subscribers added on. I don't really think that's really good. I don't think that's good. And I think they expected way more than that.
Yeah, maybe. But at least it's going up and not down.
Well, who's to say it didn't go down, and then they just added the core subscribers, and it looks like it actually did go up. Because you don't know how many core subscribers they added.
Well, you know, again, Sarah Bond did say that they've seen double-digit growth for PC and cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it is a case of like the console is saturated or going down. But I keep hearing that I don't know, can't say hearing. It's rumors bad, bro. Even though, like, you know, all the stuff I reported was accurate, you know, over the years, you know, can't talk about rumors anymore. But I did hear that there are some countries where cloud is doing so well that it's like competing with PC and console, you know, because every territory is different. You know, if you're in a country where the tax situation precludes you from, or excludes you, sorry, from, you know, being able to buy a console outright, but you've already got a TV anyway, or maybe it's a Samsung TV with the shit built in, then it's kind of like, yeah, okay, well, let's do it this way then, you know. But yeah.
All right. Got Don Otaku calling me out. Rand, you literally played the most boring character in Suicide Squad. Play with Boomerang and you have a much better time. And he also says, living up to the Blandel Thor name. I'm sorry. When I played as him, I didn't really care for his traversal or his weapons. Deathshot was the way to go, bro. Although King Shark was fun. Andy Hart, member for 24 months. Rand Jez, did you find the Xbox podcast left you with more questions than answers? Also, have you guys played a game called The Chant? I have not played The Chant. I have heard of it.
I haven't heard of it. What is The Chant?
I think it's like a horror game, I'm pretty sure. It's like a horror indie game. But do I have more questions than answers? Or am I left with more questions than answers? No. Not really.
I don't think so. I mean, they're pretty definitive in saying, like, Don't expect more than this. I mean, we do expect more than this, but I think they'll all be in the same vein as these games. They'll be like service games, there'll be community games, there'll be little smaller games, and I think another key thing here, there'll be games from studios that need cash flow. I don't think it's going to be Starfield. I don't think it's going to be Halo. I don't think it's going to be tentpole games, at least not until we see some capitulation from other sides. I think Microsoft realizes that there is some brand damage to be done here potentially if they do go in that direction. And the only question I've got now is, where's the handheld, man?
You really want that
Show me the
handheld, don't
handheld.
you?
It's coming, man.
One of the things they really talked a lot about, it highlighted, was how they have like cross save and cross progression and those sort of things. That's definitely like a highlight. They made sure to mention, hey, you buy a game with us, you get the entitlement to play it on PC, and nobody else does that. They were like highlighting the benefits of like playing on the Xbox ecosystem and why, it sets them apart.
That's why I'm in this ecosystem, man. It's not for the exclusive. I've talked on this show before how like I'm not a Halo dude. I'm not a Forza dude. I'm a Gears dude, but like, how often do we get Gears games at the moment? So like for me, it's never
You're
been
a
about
Skull
the
and Bones
exclusives,
dude.
Yeah, I'm a Skull and Bones dude, but it's never been about the exclusives. It's always been about what I get out of the ecosystem, and I am someone who plays on the Asus ROG Ally, and I do have the Lenovo Legion Go now as well. I'm testing that out, which is another handheld, and it's like it's so damn convenient that I can just be like, okay, I can load up my Xbox version of Persona on the Xbox store and get all my stuff, all my save files. And one of the games that I've been holding off on playing is Tales of Arise, because I sort of believed in my soul that one day Tales of Arise would come to Game Pass, right? And even though I do own the game, I really want the Xbox Play Anywhere version, because that's a game I really want to play on the ROG Ally, and it's sort of be my sort of travel game. And lo and behold, Tales of Arise is now confirmed for Xbox Play Anywhere and the Xbox Game Pass. And that's another benefit of Xbox Game Pass. When something hits Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass for PC, it becomes Xbox Play Anywhere by default, because that's part of the deal, Speaking of which, Rand, on a slight tangent though.
Okay.
Diablo 4 for Xbox Game Pass, not announced for cloud. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, so seemingly not coming to cloud, and I think that's a consequence of the CMA bullshit.
Well, yeah, I believe all the ABK games.
Ubisoft has to sign off on that.
I think so.
And it sounds like Ubisoft's been like, nah.
At least right now.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Afroman says, very disappointed. No update in Scalebound during the big business event. Yeah, I was sad too. And there's the weekly Scalebound mention. God Emperor Sofa King. What do you call a well-balanced horse? Stable. Oh, we got some jokes up in here too. Jokes in the super chats.
Man, that's a good joke.
Big Afroman also says, also, what do you guys think of the Game Pass subs? A little low, don't you think, after they combine with Gold? Also, Xbox handheld coming sooner? Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned it. I don't think it's a great number, especially with combined with Core. I think that's kind of a bad number, really. If that was just like Game Pass by itself before Core numbers, I think that's a good number, but it's not. So I think I think they're behind in where they want to be, and that's like a reflection on the games they released. Like in 2022, they didn't release shit. So why would anybody subscribe? And the hardware not really selling as much as they probably thought. So that really impacts like how many people are going to subscribe through console. And I don't think mobile's taken off or cloud is taken off like maybe they anticipated. So I think that's like an issue. Although they do say PC is doing good, but even still, they got a lot of things to do on the PC side of things. So
yeah.
We'll see what Call of Duty does. If they bring Call of Duty Day 1 to Game Pass this year, or what they're going to do with all the Activision games, because it looks like they're actually going to piecemeal them. Like if it's just, hey, starting Diablo 4 in March, with Bethesda they dropped them all at once, and maybe that was the wrong way to do it. Maybe games got overlooked. Maybe there wasn't enough impact by dropping like 20 of these games. So maybe they learned from that, and they're like, you know what? We're just going to drop a couple games every single month, and we're going to stretch this out. Now, some people might be pissed about that.
The smart thing to do if you got a subscription service and you want people to subscribe month
probably is because I mean, it's like, I don't know, do you want to drop all the COD games at once? Probably not, but I could see them being like, it's Modern Warfare month. Here, play all the Modern Warfare games. And then 2 months later, it's like, it's Black Ops month. Play the Black Ops games. Or it's Crash month. Here's the Crash games, Or here's the Back and Pat month. Here's the Back and Pat games, Something like that. As far as the Xbox handheld, Jez, I mean, are we firmly in the camp that like the handheld and the next generation console are coming in 2026 at this point, and not 2028?
Yeah, it certainly seems like they might have shelved those mid-gen refreshes.
What do you think Sarah meant by talking about like hardware they might talk about this holiday? Is it more like they're probably still going to release the Series S dickless version? The Series
dickless version?
The Series S diskless version? Sorry, I can't speak. Physical dicks and dickless versions of consoles. Do you think she's just maybe talking about those consoles that leaked from the FTC stuff that might be coming this holiday? Or like, you don't really expect them to announce next generation hardware this year or whatever, do you?
I mean, they could. I mean, they did Xbox Series X at the Game Awards.
Yeah, but that was a year out. I mean, even if we're thinking it's 2026, we're still 2 years out at that point,
Oh yeah, it's 2024, not 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, that could just go completely. I mean, yeah, maybe that is too early. Maybe they are doing the mid-gen refreshes still. Maybe they will just be like, yeah, there's a new Series X. Maybe it's cheaper or something. And the Series S, maybe that's cheaper too. Adorably or digital. I really hope that they do a disk drive add-on. I really hope they do that, because you're kind of shooting yourselves in the foot if you're, claiming you're all in on backwards compatibility and you don't do a disk drive add-on. It's trivial. It's just literally USB. Hell, maybe they'll even be like, we'll let you use a third-party Blu-ray drive with this device. And then it'd be like, fine, because, it's getting a USB Blu-ray drive is cheap as hell. It's like $20 or something.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, maybe, but...
Wouldn't that be like super easy to hack?
Not really.
I don't know.
I mean... No, not really. I mean, what the Blu-ray drive in your Xbox isn't proprietary. It's just a Blu-ray drive.
Oh yeah, I suppose. We got John Chris saying, for my money, go full Valve and release an Xbox OS or an Xbox mode, so third parties can build third-party Xboxes with the full fat Xbox experience. A lot of people talking about this.
They won't do that.
Third-party Xboxes. Third-party.
They won't do that. Yeah, that won't happen because, like, the reason the Xbox is the price it is because it's subsidized, right? It's subsidized by the sales of the software. If you're a third party, you're not getting the subsidized. You're not getting the subsidization. You're not getting those software sales, right? So why would a third party do it? Because they'd have to sell the box at $800 or $600 or $700, and then Microsoft would just undercut them, and then it just doesn't make any sense. Microsoft and PlayStation would undercut them for that matter. The reason the Steam Deck is so much cheaper than Asus ROG Ally is because Asus doesn't sell any software. You're just getting the pure hardware, whereas Steam's like, yeah, we're getting people into our ecosystem by doing that. And I know you can run Windows on a Steam Deck, and I know you can open boot into Linux on a Steam Deck and install whatever storefront you want on it. But the vast majority of people aren't going to bother doing that. vast majority of people won't do that. So it might as well be a closed platform at that point.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Irishman said, do you think there'll be an uproar if Xbox only released the multiplayer components of their games to other consoles? I love Gears multiplayer, but it's impossible to find a game of ranked anymore. I have seen this. I think I saw Deadly Headley tweet about this, or like a compromise that he thought would happen. Shout out to him. Shout out to their new podcast. He started like the Xbox Series podcast with him and Asa and somebody else, but I don't recall the name off the top of my head. But he sort of said this, like, what if Xbox released like Halo Infinite's multiplayer on PlayStation and Switch, but kept the campaign to itself, or released the Gears multiplayer on the other platforms, but kept the campaign to itself? Would that
Wouldn't
work?
that violate PlayStation's parity clause? It'd definitely be a discussion with PlayStation, I think. I don't think they could just do that. I think Sony would be like, we see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You're Trojan horsing us here. I don't think they'd like that, dude.
Where you would release the multiplayer as like free-to-play versions on both, and then you'd have the... Yeah, I mean, we know Sony does have that sort of... And they were complaining about the Call of Duty parody, so...
I really think they would take exception with that, because that's you're essentially turning Halo into a Trojan horse there. And like Matt Booty even alluded to the idea of like, oh yeah, we like the idea of putting our games on PlayStation because maybe Xbox, maybe they'll be like, oh, this is what Xbox is about, let's buy an Xbox. You're kind of taking that to an extreme if you put in like only bits of your game onto the platform. I don't think Sony would go for that, man, because you gotta remember this. So it's not like when it comes to putting a game on PlayStation, you don't have any rights. Sony can apply all the rules however they feel fit. So it's like, yeah, maybe they've got a bunch of rules, and maybe like a company sort of works out a way to get around those rules and act in bad faith. But then Sony would just be like, well, we're changing the rules specifically for you. You have to play by their rules on that platform, and I don't think Sony would go for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think about that. You could be right.
Of course I'm right. I'm always right.
Mm-hmm. Champagne Supernova says, Phil said they had two choices: get more out of the IP that had slowed in growth, or charge more. They chose the prior. Let's talk Sony taking the latter route. I mean, yeah, he did mention basically it's like, industry's not growing, so what do? You can basically kind of like try to get more money out of your current users or try to find more fans, right?
What would you do, Rand?
Well, you can only try to get more money out of your fans for, like, you can't keep on doing that forever. At some point, people are going to balk and give up, especially if you're not delivering on your promises. That's only going to work for so long. Finding a new audience is probably the best way for a sustainable business, model, right? Rather than like we just need to bleed this stone dry, essentially. Take you for all you're worth. Achievement says, if PlayStation does decide to put single player games on Xbox, Death Stranding is first, right? 505 published that game on PC.
I don't think they'll be publishing the sequel.
Yeah, maybe not.
They didn't publish the expanded version either. That was PlayStation. I think PlayStation saw that and was like, hang on a minute. Why aren't we doing this? But yeah.
Indrid Cold said, during the podcast, Matt Booty said, we are bringing more teams to Xbox and we're behind on that. Big comment everyone missed.
Interesting.
Okay.
I think I missed that too.
Yeah.
Are these Patreon questions, by the way, or super chats?
No, these are still super chats. Puckish Rogue says,
get into the Patreon questions soon, I think.
I'm okay with Halo Infinite on PS5. More people to shoot at. I was just worried about my digital library, especially after what Sony did with Funimation.
I think that's why most people feel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole Funimation thing is a clusterfuck.
Yeah, sure is. Maker of Chaos says, in my opinion, timed exclusivity isn't that big of a deal. When I think of big drivers to PlayStation, I think of COD and Hogwarts with exclusive DLC betas. Xbox can benefit with COD promos and advertising rights.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of COD Xbox advertising moving forward, and I think that will probably do more than Xbox than anything else.
They need to tie in Game Pass with COD. Like, you need to see Call of Duty advertisements like intertwined with Game Pass, because this is going to be your way to like sell Game Pass to a different audience that never really probably has looked at it before. And that's one of the things we've always talked about. It seems like not everybody knows about Game Pass, and maybe this is finally your chance to bring that awareness to more people through one of the biggest franchises in gaming, essentially.
Yeah.
So
it's not only that though. It's like there's also they don't do enough with perks, man.
That's true. They don't.
You were talking about things like having another tier of Game Pass where there's like World of Warcraft subscription in it and stuff like that. They need to do more with perks first. There's so much they could do that they're not doing with perks, which they could have cosmetic DLC. They could say to their studios, okay, every month you have to give us some asset that we add to the perks. And this should be trivial because Amazon is already doing it with the Amazon Prime perks. Like every month with Amazon Prime, I get free Hearthstone card packs. I get mounts for World of Warcraft. I get a bunch of Battle Pass tier skips for Overwatch. I just literally redeemed today 5 Battle Pass tier skips with the Amazon Prime thingamabob. Like, why in the hell is that not tied to Game Pass? Why do I not get that perk with Game Pass? Why do I have to subscribe to Amazon Prime to get that stuff? There's so much they could do there that they're not doing, and to add value. And hopefully, when Call of Duty comes out, they do it. I think when Call of Duty comes to Game Pass, you really do need to have a full-blown suite, almost like a reboot of a re-release, a reimagining, and a reboot of the conversation between consumers and Xbox Game Pass. It needs to be basically a relaunch event, I think. We'll see what happens.
Ed Lover says, I'm excited about Sea of Thieves coming to PlayStation 5 so I can jump back in. Haven't played since launch, so it'd be fun to play new content with other new players.
That's awesome.
DJ JF says, I'm a Sea of Thieves player and the game really needed more players, which is why when I heard from a source in October last year, I was stoked. By the way, all love. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good old Collinwood says Flight Sim 2024. That's right. That is another game I did forget out of that 10.
Yeah.
That is supposed to come this year, unless they change their name to Flight Simulator 2025. You know what I mean? Banana Peel
released Dune DLC for that game.
They did.
Cool.
Dune's coming out soon. Banana Peel Jack says Sony loses nothing by going day one on PC. The PC folks are not buying PS5s anyways. A ton of $70 day one sales versus a fraction of that 2 years later. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How many? They did announce that Spider-Man 2 sold, 10 million as of February? But, I mean, how many more would that be if it was on day one on PC? 15 million? 20 million already? Well, maybe not 20 million, but I think it'd be a lot more. Adam F., member for 28 months. Some pep must have watched something else. Some people must have watched something else. Felt like them ripping the Band-Aid slowly. More than 4 will follow. Day one on Game Pass was nice to know, though.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what it is. It's like, yeah, they've ripped the bandage off, and more exclusives probably will come. But they're committed to day one Game Pass, and they're committed to hardware. So I'm pretty happy with that overall. They're taking a softly approach, and if they can prove with this approach that it won't hurt console sales and all that kind of stuff, then good. And they said that's what they're gonna do, so I'm okay with that.
Years of Lurkin says Xbox and PlayStation stores with microtransactions, they compete with Steam. Mr. 2 Opinionated, how do you feel about a possible Xbox OS? Flowers to the Inner Gaming Circle podcast for the idea. How do you
Yeah,
feel
man.
about
All
that
circle.
Xbox OS, Jez?
I mean, we've kind of got it already. I mean, the thing with the Xbox operating system right now is that it's kind of split between a bunch of different operating systems sort of bolted together. And I suppose if they were doing a handheld and all that kind of stuff, they'd need to rethink the way the operating system works a little bit. Um, and I think they are doing work towards that because, um, especially user interface work. Because, like Phil said in the interview with The Verge, one of our weakest bits right now is how terrible Windows is on these kind of devices, right? So yeah, I suppose it'd be interesting to see where they go with this. If they do, whether they do just do like a Windows interface that was better for gaming, or just be like to Asus and those guys. Yeah, just here's a full blown operating system that works with Windows and Steam. Use this instead. I don't know what they'll do, but the fact of the matter is, Xbox is now bigger than Windows at Microsoft. Um, so back in the day, it would be like Windows dictating to Xbox what they can and can't do. Not anymore. Now the clout's on the other foot. That's a weird phrase. The
Yeah.
clout's on the other foot. Um, but yeah, the clout is very well and truly on the other foot right now. And I suppose we'll see where that takes the software effort.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice to take the Xbox OS and put it on a handheld or whatever, or even on the PC. Instead of having to deal with that. I don't really have an opinion on it because I'm not really a mobile guy or whatever. So, but I do hear from people that use, like Jez said, that the Windows kind of sucks on those handheld devices.
It does. It's awful.
Gamer by Choice says companies do not understand how fickle consumers are. No spreadsheet created can understand how human brains take data and process it. Great show. Well, thank you. Alvin says in the past year for Killer Instinct, they updated all servers, made an anniversary edition, had gooded on the Evo stage, and just last week linked Steam and Xbox ranked. Yeah, they're doing a lot with Killer Instinct.
Yep, it's coming back, baby. There's going to be a sequel, and it's going to be multi-platform. I believe.
Supernova says Shinji Mikami said on his Facebook account, about time for Evil Within 3. Is the Ghostwire Tokyo team working on the next Evil Within or John Johannes? Question mark.
I would love to see Shinji Mikami come back to do Evil Within 3. Don't know if it'll happen though.
That won't happen.
We'll see, man.
I would imagine John Johannes is probably working on. I would imagine Hi-Fi Rush 2. But yeah,
I think Microsoft likes the idea of having a horror pillar within their purview.
Well, and the question is Evil Within 3 or is it going to be Ghostwire Tokyo 2? Which one?
I think Evil Within 3 is way more recognizable as a franchise. There's merchandise, for God's sake, of the Executioner. But yeah, we'll see. Dude, Rand, we need to do Patreon questions, man.
I'm just getting to the rest. I got 2 left. Meat Puppet. Question, is Dealer still outside touching the grass? Is RDX coming back? Keep up the good work. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think he's gonna come back eventually, but I think he's just had some real life stuff to deal with. You know, sometimes it happens. Got to deal with real life stuff. RDX Son of Fett. When do we think of Blade exclusivity now? Do we see a Slim this year or new gen in 2026? We might see a Slim this year and then new gen in 2026. Exclusivity for Blade? I still think maybe you do exclusivity for at least a year, just because I think Blade is a type of game that's going to draw people to your ecosystem, just like Indiana Jones will. But I don't know. I mean, that's also, 3 years from now, supposedly, maybe 4, so... I mean, who even knows? Quasman says Scalebound. And Big Alphaman says, do y'all agree with Colin that the event didn't do them any favors and Xbox fans should just be even more worried now? Says Xbox messaging is horrible and they're just talking in circles. No one presses Phil.
I disagree with that.
I think Colin should worry about PlayStation and not necessarily have to worry so much about Xbox. You
Yeah,
know?
I don't agree. I like Colin, but I disagree with that. And I think like Colin's perspective on this is diminished because he's not actively using the ecosystem. Like if people are actively using the ecosystem and actively engage with what Xbox is saying and stuff, feel okay with it, then I think that's probably the takeaway there. So I need to get on Colin's show and discuss some of this stuff with him.
All right, we got Patreon questions. So if you guys are, still here, still watching, do us a big favor, hit the like button, please, and subscribe if you haven't. We'll get some of these questions. Sith Lord, with the Daytona 500 this Sunday, who's going to win it? New driver or repeat winner? I have no idea. I don't. I don't. I've never watched.
Any of that means
I've never watched a racing event. I don't know who the drivers are or anything. So I'll just say a new driver. I have no idea. I don't watch any of that stuff. Sorry, Sith Lord. I don't watch that stuff. Achievement. Do you think we will see? Do you think we will see a time when Xbox Game Studios self-publish to other platforms using ID at Xbox? Maybe not deliberately advertise at ID at Xbox but with the resources provided. No.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that ID at Xbox isn't just indie games. It's basically like their entire digital publishing operation now. So it's not just indie games. It's like any game that's direct to digital, really. But even now, they're sort of they have expanded what ID Xbox does and what it is. But I can't see self-published games happening. It'll always be, there'll always be an Xbox logo at the beginning of that stuff. Unless Sony blocks it or something, I don't know.
I don't understand why Microsoft doesn't put the Xbox logo in front of all their games. Like when the new Call of Duty comes in there, like the first thing you see when you turn on that should be the Xbox logo.
I agree.
Absolutely. I agree. They need to leverage that, and they probably won't. It'll just be the Activision thing. But I don't know why you wouldn't want for all those people on PlayStation to literally turn on their PlayStations to see Xbox Game Studios or whatever.
Again, I think it's because Sony probably says, no, you can't do this.
Why not? I don't understand. Like, what would be the reason?
It's their rules, man. It's their way of the highway. They can do whatever they want.
Well, I think Minecraft has the Xbox Game Studios logo. Right?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't have a PlayStation. You will have to find out for us, Rand, Mr. Multi-Platform.
I mean, I'm not going to load up games I own on Xbox on PlayStation. You kidding me?
Why not?
I don't know. Somebody in chat will know. For sure. Oh, Aramic said I missed one of his super chats. Where'd it go? I think I did.
Damn.
I don't see it. It must have skipped it. Aramac. What was it?
Yeah, just repeat it in chat and Rand can get it.
Yeah, Aramic, if you're listening, just at me in the chat and I'll read it because I do not see it in my list. It like disappeared. It's not here. I'll scroll through it again, but oh no, here it is. I found it. Aramic, he says, what would you guys think if Xbox does a handheld as a low-cost entry point? The Xbox Series X becomes the low-tier hardware option, and they go crazy with next-gen with something much closer to a PC around $800 based on Sarah's comments. Whoa.
Whoa. $800 ain't gonna work,
Yeah,
I don't think.
I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't personally, if we're getting around like what's good for the business, an $800 Xbox, if it was powerful enough, I'd probably like it. But an $800 console probably not selling in this day and age, right? So that, yeah, I don't think that works. The handhelds,
I wouldn't be shocked, right, if they just do all three. There's like Xbox Series S, they do as the lowest cost option, an Xbox Series S tier handheld, which is a bit more expensive because of the engineering involved, and then the Xbox Series X higher end stuff. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they did all three, because Microsoft's mentality is we want to, get as much people into the ecosystem as possible, which means meeting them where they are, and maybe some people want the cheapest option, which is
there's going to be you think there's going to be 3 tiers of hardware?
yeah, why not?
But
2 development SKUs to target.
What do you mean? So the low console option will be the same as the handheld option?
Handheld, yeah, something like that, yeah.
No, I think it's just going to be one powerful console and then the handheld, and that'll be it. That's my guess.
You have to remember that there's 4 consoles in this ecosystem right now, not 2. People keep forgetting that, but there are 4 consoles in this ecosystem, not 2. And about half of the people are on the last gen still monetized, still active, still playing Fortnite. So I think the whole idea of people need to stop thinking about hardware generations in those terms and start thinking about them more like iPhones. People haven't quit using their older iPhones. They're still buying apps on them. They're still monetized, all that kind of stuff. So I think that could well do all three versions of the next gen, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if the handheld is going to be a low cost entry though.
It won't be. That's exactly my point. The handheld will not be cheap.
Yeah,
it will not be cheap.
That thing's probably going to be at least 500, if not more, right? 600 maybe. How much is the ROG Ally?
The ROG Ally is not subsidized, so the ROG Ally is $700.
Yeah, okay, so you could probably sell that for what? 600, 550? Subsidized?
Well, the Steam Deck's $450, I think, off the top of my head.
I thought the Steam Deck's like $350. I think it has like 3 options depending on what memory solution you get with it, right? Doesn't it have 3 options?
There's 3 options. There's like a lower end version that has, I believe it's got 64 gigabytes of memory, but also I think it's got slower RAM or something like that. If I remember correctly, I'm probably getting that wrong. I think Xbox will do that too. There'll be different versions for the different amounts of storage that you put in it. Because obviously that's relevant with a handheld because everything's sort of contained in one place. But yeah, it won't be cheap. So I think if you do want to still have that cheap cost of entry console, that sort of like doesn't need the engineering because with a handheld, you need specific chips. You need like low energy chips that aren't going to, cook when they're compacted together like that. But like with a bigger box, you've got more room. So you can put a big ass fan in it, like the one in the Series S, right? So you can, use cheaper chips and stuff like that. That's why I think they'll do all 3 because the handheld is not going to be cheap. It's not. So I don't know. We'll see, man.
Bro, I just got called out. When I mentioned Asa and Deadly Headley's new podcast, the Xbox Series podcast, I said there's another member that I wasn't sure who the name was. He just called me out on Twitter, bro.
Who?
Gamesley. He says, Rand and Jez, I'm the co-host alongside Asa and Deadly Headley in the Xbox Series podcast. I've been part of your community forever, damn it. Just watch our pod. We are funnies, I promise. I've watched it. I'm sorry. I just forgot. I just forgot.
Rand's just a terrible person, man.
I know Asa because I've done podcasts with Asa, and Deadly Headley's got that name. He's just Deadly Headley. And I was just like, I know there's a third guy, and I'm sorry that I forgot your name. I know there's a third guy, but off the top of my head, I'm usually the one with the good memory. It didn't.
Losing your edge.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I failed you, and I'm sorry.
Damn.
Nate Miller, back at the Patreon question, says, just wanted to say thanks for keeping up all the great work, you two. My question is unrelated to Xbox. What's your go-to midnight snack? Mine is a warm glass of milk. I actually don't have a
Midnight
go-to midnight
snack.
snack right now. But
Um,
but if I did, it would
Something with
probably be
bread.
uh like Ritz crackers or something, maybe.
Marmite on toast. That's
Marmite
mine.
and toast. Okay. Silas. And now for something completely different. Being a huge Monty Python fan, I recently got to see Spamalot on Broadway. Loved it, and it got me thinking about one of their most successful movies. Lad, this is probably the most important question you'll be ever asked. What is the meaning of life? I've seen that movie, but it was so long ago. I think I saw it when I was in high school with my buddies because they were all stoners. So we'd watch like The Life of Brian, What's the Meaning of Life, and like what was the other one?
Um,
The one with the quest
I
for the
can't
Holy
remember.
Grail. It's like the Knights of Knee and "'Tis just a scratch. Bring out your
Isn't that the
dead."
life of Brian?
Is that the life? No, that's not Life of Brian.
No, I don't know, man.
That's like with
I haven't really.
Lancelot and all that stuff.
Yeah,
God, what
I
is
know what
the
you mean.
Monty? Is it Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail? Is that the name of the movie?
I don't know,
I'm
man.
like blanking on it now. I haven't seen any of those in forever.
Yeah, me too. I haven't seen them either for
What
a
is
long time.
Life of Brian? That's the one with about Jesus, if I remember correctly, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I thought. That's why I was thinking Holy Grail. But...
Yeah, Holy Grail's the other one. The Quest for the Holy Grail. Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. It's been a long time since I've seen those movies.
Well, what is the meaning of life then, Rand?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I guess if you go for what is the meaning of life, I guess you go with the number 42. Isn't that what Douglas Adams says in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Is that
Number 42.
42? CJ says, "Hey gents, I was wondering if I'm the minority here, but Skull and Bones looks graphically underwhelming. Like not even much better than Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Would love to hear your thoughts." Well, Jez talked all about it, and it's actually
I mean,
the game
there
that's being displayed too. So
there are times when I was playing it where I thought, "Hey, this looks really gorgeous," right? But it's like when you sort of getting close and you see anything up close, then it sort of falls to bits. Like it looks good when you're on the ocean and there's reflections on the water and stuff like that, but when you sort of like you're swimming up close on the shore and you chopping down a tree or something, it's like you can see how terrible the textures are and the models and stuff like that because they don't expect you to zoom in and have a look, right? So yeah, that game is just a cover to cover disaster story, I guess. And I'd be interested to see like what they try and do to keep it going, if anything. But we'll see.
let's see. Christopher says, "Hey, Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush are the 4 games they're talking about, I think. What's your thought?" I would 100% agree with you, and I think Jez does as well. Those 4 games. Hugh says, "Hi, gents. So,
Yep.
innovative
And Redfall.
Redfall. Innovative multi-year hardware roadmap, including more console controller options for this holiday. Do you think this will finally be the Sebo controller reveal? I know I mentioned it a few weeks ago, but if it's missing gyro, it'll be such a missed opportunity. I think it would be awesome to fly with in Flight Sim, steer in Forza, solve puzzles in Indiana Jones, or use to select things quickly in Ara. Shooting is also so much better with gyro. Man, Hugh loves gyro. He wants it really badly, and is probably not going to have it because I don't think it was in any of those documentations.
No.
Yeah.
I think gyro will come eventually. I think like there's more and more people are sort of learning to use it. I noticed that the Lenovo Legion Go has a gyro setting you can turn on, so maybe that's where I'll first try it out. And maybe I'll join you in a quest to get gyro on Xbox.
Okay. It's quite small, but smells like a big one. They say, "Do you think long-term consoles will fall more in line with how AMD and Nvidia set standard design limits for their respective video cards? Imagine a future where Sony and Microsoft form some sort of business alliance group that standardizes each generation's console specs, and then it's up to them on how they differentiate their branded consoles. Similar to Asus and Gigabyte have similar but different variants of high-end AMD and Nvidia cards."
I mean, there's a lot of things that Microsoft and Sony could do to improve gaming if they worked together on it. It's just a case of like, would they actually do it? You know, I want to believe the answer is yeah, but would they actually do it? Would they really do it? Probably not. I suppose that's pessimistic of me, but Sony very much sees Microsoft as a hostile adversary. I think, even if I think, I think Xbox is a lot more kumbaya about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a good thing if they did standardize to some degree and then competed on services and stuff. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Lazar Wolf says, I'm sure you guys covered everything already, so I'll just finally say, Rand, my name is pronounced Laser Wolf. Thanks for the great shows every week. Okay. Laser Wolf. I'll remember that. I don't know why I started saying Lazar. I don't know why. Maybe it's because
Lazar.
like it's Lazar. It seems like that's
Ryan also messaged me once and said, "Can you tell Rand it's pronounced Ryan Keipel, not
Ryan.
Kipple?"
Oh, okay. It's tough, man. You know, it's tough.
It is tough.
I'm an idiot, so sometimes I just say the words Ryan Keipel. Okay, not Kipple. And Laser Wolf. Infinity says, hey, Rand and Jez. So Sarah mentioned next gen. I'm curious which camp you guys fall into. Do you think the next Xbox will release in 2026, 2028, or some other time? I mean, it's starting to look like 2026 is going to be on point.
I think 26, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's maybe they even go earlier in 25, but I don't really see that. So I'll say it's like 80-20 for me. That 2026 is the right year. Omen says, so Sarah Bond said there will be hardware announced at the end of the year, and then separately that the next gen will be the biggest jump. Do you think the rumored Xbox handheld might actually be a mid-gen release? I just think that if they had the biggest jump technologically, it could not be possible in just a handheld form factor.
I think the handheld was only greenlit relatively recently. I know they've had... Oh, hang on. Are we doing rumors?
People don't like rumors, remember?
Yeah, people don't like rumors. I have no idea about handheld, sorry.
I mean, you can tell me after the show, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will speculate then that maybe, if there is maybe possibly a handheld, that maybe possibly it only got greenlit relatively recently. So maybe possibly it's probably more like 2026, possibly, if it's true and real and if it's something that they would possibly do. How about that?
All right. Katriox. Question for Rand. Recently I became obsessed with reading novels. Oh, I like where this is going. And I wanted to ask, what are some of the books you recommend? What are your favorites to read within the fantasy and science fiction genre? Oh, let me... Okay, Jez, we got a question.
Rand, we need to get out of here relatively quickly.
I know. So Katriox.
We'll be here all night, man. Don't set him off on books. God damn.
The thing is, it's tough to recommend fantasy because they're all series, and I don't know how much you really want to get into the series. I mean, you can DM me and I could go into more detail. But the book I always recommend for science fiction, if I'm just starting you off with one book, is Project Hail Mary. Pick that up, read it, love it, and everybody I've recommended it to, which is like 8 people, they've all loved it. So just start out with that book and DM me if you want more recommendations. Parker Petrov. Hey, Rand and Jez, I hope you're doing well. I'm going to keep it simple with my questions. So after finding out that 4 first-party games from Xbox are coming to PlayStation, is it safe to say that this is the most significant game drop Sony gamers can expect to see this year? Ouch, man.
Oh, ouchie.
What's the over-under on Sony dropping 4 games on their own console this year? Oh, wait, I guess Sony's CEO spoiled that last one. Ouch. Damn.
The shade, man.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, we are gonna get some PlayStation exclusives and the second party, and they're coming to PC as well. But every PlayStation game is going to end up on PC eventually anyway. So I think Stellar Blade looks fantastic, and not just because of the assets. The assets. I think Stellar Blade looks really good. Obviously, there's Helldivers as well, which again is developed by an independent studio, but is exclusive. Rise of the Ronin looks really good as well. I think there's going to be plenty of good second party ish kind of exclusives for PlayStation. So I don't think it's such a big deal for them that they don't have a big franchise name like a Horizon or a God of War or whatever. You know. But yeah, Sony will be fine. That'll be all right. Don't worry about Sony.
Aaron says, what if the next gen Xbox is an enthusiast box, a more powerful, more expensive console that possibly will not be sold at a loss? Do you think this could be a better strategy than matching the PS6's performance and price? I can't see them releasing a console that's more than $500. I just can't see that. I know, like, the question is, like, it would be an enthusiast console, so it'll be more expensive because they can do more things with it, but I just can't see them being like, oh, well, you know what? Like, let's even sell less consoles. Let's go for a $700 banger. So to me, it's like it'll be within that $400 and $500 range. That's like the sweet spot for these things.
Yeah.
And if anything, the handheld will be the more expensive thing.
Yeah.
So, good old Collinwood says, "Happy Valentine's Day, Rand and Jez. With the premiere of the second season, my question for Rand is: have you read any of the Halo novels? I have not read a single one of them."
Wow, and you're the book guy.
Yeah, I am. I've never read a Halo novel. Maybe I should.
Have you watched any of season 2 though?
I've not watched any of it yet. I don't watch seasons.
Have you watched
while they're
season
going.
1?
I did not watch season 1.
So you've got to watch a lot then. If you're gonna watch it.
Maybe I'll just drop in on season 2 and just start from there. I don't know. Didn't really hear good things about season 1, so. CyberRez says, I'm sure you all have covered this by the time you get to this, but just in case, what have you heard about the new hardware coming this holiday?
Nothing except for what leaked in the FTC stuff, I guess. If those mid-gen refreshes, like the cylinder Xbox without the disk drive and stuff, if that's all true, then we've got the full rundown, a breakdown of that stuff on Windows Central. But yeah, I haven't heard anything beyond that really. There's always the rumors about a handheld, which people don't like rumors around. They don't like them. They don't like them, bro.
Yeah. Trickster for Trey says, like to subscribe to the idea that Satya wanted to go multi-plat and Phil didn't, so he leaked it to cause outrage. Matt Booty said 10 games to release this year. We know of 4 or 5. What could be the others? I mean, we sort of talked about that. Like, it's going to be a mixture of full releases and then expansions. Like Diablo expansion, Elder Scrolls expansion.
Elder Scrolls Castles, I think.
Maybe a mobile release. All those sort of count. So, I know people think 10 and they think, 10 actual games, but it's probably more going to be like 6 games and 4 expansions, or even like if the COD mobile game, that'd be 1. So they got their hands on a lot of pies. Lee Sanders says,
I wonder if they make a pie making game. Sorry, go on.
Say the other platform idea works for Xbox. One by one of the below, which do you think will follow suit as a potential candidate for being released on other platforms after the exclusive luster is dissipated across the Xbox platform? Okay. We'll read this off and you say yes or no. Ready, Jez?
Go on then.
Hellblade 2.
Yes.
Ara.
No.
Avowed.
Actually, Ara, yes.
Okay.
Avowed. I'm gonna say no to Avowed. I'm gonna say yeah. The reason I said yes to Hellblade is because Hellblade 1 is on PlayStation already.
Okay. Microsoft Flight Sim.
Yes, definitely.
Towerborn.
Maybe.
Okay. Clockwork Revolution.
I'm gonna say no to that one.
Everwild.
I'm gonna say no to that one.
Fable.
I'm gonna say no to that one.
OD.
I'm gonna say no to that one as well.
The Outer Worlds 2.
I'm gonna say no to that as well.
I
Oh,
would,
actually, maybe the Outer Worlds because the first one's already on
yeah,
PlayStation.
Perfect Dark,
I'm gonna say no, definitely not.
Project Mara,
I'm gonna say no.
Project Maverick.
Oh, what's Maverick
I mean,
again?
that's the game that's being made by People Could Fly.
Oh, interesting. I suppose if it's a service game, then maybe. If it's a service game, it might launch on the PlayStation.
Mm.
But
Blade,
I'm gonna say maybe because of the licensing stuff.
South of Midnight,
I'm gonna say no to that one.
State of Decay 2, or maybe you mean State of Decay 3.
I'm gonna say no to that as well because I think Microsoft wants State of Decay to be a pillar, iconic franchise for Xbox.
Okay. And lastly, Elder Scrolls 4. Or
I'm gonna
Elder Scrolls, wouldn't it be Elder
say
Scrolls
six.
6?
Six. That's a weird one. I think yeah. I think Elder Scrolls probably yeah. Because I think that'll be a timed exclusive because all the Elder Scrolls games have been on PlayStation, and even though I think they said it's going to be exclusive. It's kind of like I think any game that's already exists on other platforms or any franchise, I think that's the kind of game where they can just point to and be like, yeah, it makes sense. But I think games that are sort of like new franchises, single player, and like Starfield, I think those are the games that don't necessarily go straight away, if at all. So, but hey, I could be wrong. And
Mm.
again, these are all predictions, speculation. They're not leaks, so don't get mad if anything turns out to be true or not. God damn it! I had to tweet. I tweeted the other day. I tweeted, can't wait for Xbox Business Update 2. And someone immediately quote tweeted that and says Jez is teasing another business update in another language. So I think some of this is partially, when sarcasm doesn't translate very well outside of English or in the culture or whatever. Because like it was in another language, someone had mistranslated it or whatever. I don't know, but oh well, it is what it is.
um, 09C Mine says, hey guys, hope you're doing well. What's your thoughts on leakers just casually dropping giant news, which divides the community immensely, only for them to casually walk it back like it's no big deal and didn't cause a shitload of problems? Looking at you, Nate the Hate. I think unless your source is 100% verified, it shouldn't even be put out there, especially something of that magnitude. Have a great week.
I
Well,
mean, I tend to agree. I never put anything out there I'm not 100% sure about. I mean, I reacted to the news, but when it's a report, an actual report that I put my name on, then it's because I'm 100% sure about it. I've always said this. If it's up on Windows Central, then it's a report that I'm 100% sure of. And when it comes to content on Windows Central that constitutes a report, I think my track record is practically 100%, if not 100%. If it's on the podcast or it's on Twitter and it's just a reaction or a speculation or whatever, then it shouldn't be taken as a report. So I tend to agree that people with a big platform shouldn't report things unless they're absolutely certain of it.
yeah, but I
Um,
mean, it was Xbox Era that dropped the Starfield report. Even if Nate
yeah, but
then
Nate corroborated it
sure,
very broadly. He
yeah, but I
didn't
mean,
just
but shit hit the fan when Xbox Era dropped it. Like Nate didn't drop the Starfield report. He just walked back his, what he was like. I'm not backing this anymore. The
yeah, but
way
why back it at all if you're not sure about
because
it?
he thought he was sure, you know. And then he was like,
Mm,
I'm not sure anymore, so I'm walking it back. But I mean, the giant news that divided the community wasn't dropped by him. That was dropped by Xbox Era,
yeah.
who are standing by what they said. So, I mean, if you say something and then it's false, do you walk it back? Do you just hope it ends up being true? Like
I mean, that's what you'd hope is that honesty will prevail. If you if you report something that ends up not being true. I mean, I remember a big outlet a little while ago reported that EA was looking to sell, and that affected EA's share price. And then EA was like, "Nah, it's not happening," you know. And that was like a big outlet reported that, and then they had to admit they gotten incorrect information and stuff like that. I never want to be in that position where it's been like, "Oh yeah, I was given incorrect information," but I don't know. I think Reset Era had a credible source for this stuff, and I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe they'll never. Maybe someday they'll explain where all that came from. But I've got a feeling it came from a known person in the industry who either passed it on because they were annoyed or they had misinterpreted a conversation or something like that.
Okay.
Or it could be just exactly that they are still thinking about doing it. You know, and maybe in a couple of years Xbox Era will be completely exonerated and everyone will go and owe them a big fat apology. But they are standing by it for now.
Yeah, Sierra01 Kevin. Hi guys, no question this week, just a comment. I just want to say I appreciate all your work and interaction with the community. I noticed you were having to deal with a lot of toxic comments recently on social media, but just know there's a larger silent majority that appreciate what you both do. Well, thank you.
Thanks so
And
much.
Jez deals with a lot of bullshit because Jez has a large following on social media and he tweets all the time. So you deal with a hell of a lot, which is kind of bullshit. It makes me upset because there are people that attack you that I want to say something to, but I'm just like, it would even get way
Nah.
worse if I stepped in because I'm not gonna mince words with people, and I'm just like, like I saw the one earlier, and I'm just like, I had to like hold myself back from saying anything.
Nah, don't worry about it. It is what it is. But I appreciate all the support I get, and I do try and focus on the positives, you know. There's plenty of assholes out there looking to clout chase, and and it happens with anyone when they get a platform. It's like, you know, they try and create drama because they're like, oh, I can make a YouTube video out of this. It's completely disingenuous, and this is why I never go after anyone. It's usually like when I have gone after someone, it's usually because it's not usually because it's always because they started it. But it's like you start something, I will finish it.
Mm.
You know?
We have one from Radimus Cisco. Hello guys, hope you're doing great. The biggest thing that stuck with me about the business update video was Phil loosely quoting Lisa Su, AMD CMO, saying something that AMD powered consoles are likely to decline in 2024. That makes me think about future consoles too. Is that a possible hint prediction that there are plans for other types of devices without AMD? Like the handheld, for example? I know the boring answer would be that it's based on Nintendo Switch 2, but what do you guys think? Could there be anything else we could take from that statement?
I know that I know that you know AMD is looking for growth and they're probably asking for more money every year and every year. And there's like there are incumbents in the industry looking to break in. Intel being one, because Intel has its GPU line, Intel Arc, and GPUs are like they are so hot right now because they do AI calculations and they do all these other kind of calculations which are needed to process the next big wave in computing. I don't know if you saw this week, but um, Nvidia just became the world's
I did.
third largest company
They're like
by
past
market cap.
Amazon, right?
Yeah, Nvidia is bigger than Amazon because everyone wants those sexy RTX graphics cards for doing complex calculations, right? Um, so Microsoft might be like, screw AMD, we'll go with Intel. Intel stuff's getting better. They're constantly shipping updates all the time, and all that kind of stuff. But it always throws a wrench in the bucket, to quote Rand, when you do want to switch architecture because then you end up with you end up with compatibility issues. And Microsoft's been very bullish on, wanting to commit to um, backwards compatibility and forwards compatibility. And I was speaking to someone about future Xbox hardware recently, where they were like, "Yeah, we're still committed to backwards compatibility even for the next Xbox as well." So, does switching away from AMD complicate that effort? So, uh, I don't know, man. I mean, I'd ask someone more knowledgeable than me, but maybe it means AMD's going to be kicked to the curb, or maybe it just means they expect the console market is now at its saturation level. Maybe COVID accelerated this gen more quickly than anyone would have expected. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Sick and Tired says, how much do you think the decision to put games on PC hurt Xbox console sales? Has it been a mistake in hindsight?
In terms of pure revenue, it hasn't been a mistake. I think it has hurt console sales, but again, the business is not selling consoles; it's selling games. That's the business. So putting the games on PC has made Xbox higher revenue than ever, even if it has potentially hurt the hardware sales a little bit. So I don't think it was a mistake, and the fact that Sony's even talking about doing it now further lends credence to that idea that this is just the way things are. Your business is selling the games; it's not selling the hardware.
I mean, I think it probably did hurt hardware to
It
a certain
definitely
extent.
did. Definitely did.
But you could probably say maybe it was the best thing they could do for the business. Because they've had a lot of successes on Steam that otherwise they maybe wouldn't have had on console, reaching that extra audience and getting that revenue. So, I mean, you can say like they're one of the biggest publishers on Steam, aren't they now? Because they put everything.
They are, dude. They're one of the biggest publishers, if not the biggest publisher on PlayStation now.
Yeah.
With Call of Duty and Minecraft. Is a Minecraft on Steam? I don't think it is.
No, Minecraft is
it?
not on Steam. No.
Well, there you go. I mean, Minecraft is on PlayStation with Call of Duty. I think
Minecraft is like the biggest third-party game on Switch, isn't it? As well.
Yeah, it is.
I
honestly would not be surprised if Xbox and Microsoft is the biggest publisher on PlayStation.
I sort of wonder what Xbox would look like if they never had bought Minecraft, because it sort of feels like Minecraft floated that whole division for a while, the success of it and everything.
Definitely. Roughest times,
Yeah. Diego, he says, "Sup guys, I'm happy that Xbox continues to make hardware and ABK games are coming to Game Pass, but I don't believe those 4 games are the only games going to other platforms. I just find it hard to believe only 4 are going and everything else is staying on Xbox. What do you guys think?" We are in agreement, sir.
We agree, yeah.
We're in agreement. It's definitely going to be more than 4. For sure. SJ Dub says, "Hey fellas, sorry about last minute question. Since you guys were briefly talking about Colin, I was curious if Jez was going to withdraw the apology towards Colin when Starfield, the PS5 story, broke last Sunday. You don't actually have to answer this, Jez. Have a great weekend." I saw that you did, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did say, never mind.
Never mind. Yeah. But here's the thing. His whole thing was that he said it would come day one, not that it would come eventually. So no, you don't have to give him his flowers because he was wrong. It didn't happen on day one.
Nah. Honestly, I really like Colin. Colin's been like super cool to me in DM and supportive when I've talked about issues I was having and stuff on the platform. I said last weekend that I was taking a break from Twitter, and loads of people, it was so annoying because loads of people took that as it was like bad news for Xbox coming up. And I was just like, I can't say anything on this platform without it somehow relating to Xbox, And it was nothing to do with that. Like, family member was dealing with something really, really difficult, and the authorities were involved and all that kind of shit. And when they got involved, it was like, okay, I can breathe again, and it was like things will be okay. And it was just super annoying. Like, I wanted to chill and sort of avoid some of that stuff. And every time I get on Twitter, there's people screaming about like, "Oh, you said you said Starfield was coming to PlayStation, and then me having to explain once again, that was not my fucking report, you moron. So yeah, I got fed up with it a little bit, but yeah, there's everyone in the community has been super supportive. I really, really appreciate you. You don't know how much, and
Mm-hmm.
you as well, Rand. You're pretty cool as well.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
Jez told me today that maybe he should leave Xbox 2 and I should get a new co-host because everybody hates him. And I said, "F that." He's like, "Everybody hates me, bro," and I'm like, "It doesn't matter. The only opinion of the person that matters is me, and you're my co-host." Right?
Yeah, man.
Governor Grimm says that if Xbox wants to meet customers wherever they are, would they consider a console that allows Windows or access to Steam?
Well, that's the Steam Deck, so no. And Microsoft would just let other companies make that, because at the end of the day, they lose there's no subsidization there if they're not getting the software sales.
No,
There has to be some kind of closed nature to the Xbox business for it to work, you know.
that's true.
But who knows what happens in the future? Maybe Xbox just takes over the entire Windows division, and they're just like, we're sick of Windows being a productivity tool. It's now going to become a gaming operating system. Who knows what
Could you
happened, man?
imagine?
Who knows what nefarious plans Phil Spencer has?
Senior Bean in the super chat says Reddit gaming leaks and rumors released their insider rankings with Jez sitting at a tier 2. Don't give up on rumors, Jez. Great pod as always. Thank you. You're a tier 2 insider, apparently, according to them, Jez.
Yeah, which means generally reliable.
I think it means you're 50-50. I think that's what that
No,
means.
no.
Oh,
No,
no.
no, 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 no.
You looked into this, you know?
I looked into it, yeah,
Oh,
because I
okay.
did see it. It means
Generally reliable.
generally
Okay.
reliable.
That's
Whereas like tier 1, Jason Schreier is always reliable or something.
Is he the only one in tier 1?
There's a few people in there, I think.
Oh, Special Nick's like tier 4, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, me, Jeff Grubb, and Tom Warren are all tier 2.
Tier 2, okay.
Yeah, I think. But yeah, that subreddit is like, it's so annoying when sometimes I'm browsing Reddit and I see Jez Corden said this, and when it's like speculation and someone's posted it as like a report because they don't read properly, and everyone's like flaming me and reacting to something I didn't say because they applied someone else's context to it. It's so annoying, man. It's so weird the way people just they want to hate, so they make up reasons to hate you. It's so weird, but whatever, man.
Indeed. RDX Unfed says King David is right. This is a stimulus package for Sony. And Keyshawn Thompson, member for 26 months, says, hey to you as well. And those are all the Patreon questions and everything, Jez. I know you wanted to end a little bit earlier today because you got stuff to do tomorrow. So
yeah, I'm going to see the family member who's been having difficulties.
Yeah. So, thank you guys so much for hanging with us on this beautiful Friday. What is it? Today, February 16th, episode 304 of the Xbox 2. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Whether you're listening live with us for the whole show or just for 5 minutes, or you're going to listen to this later on Spotify or iTunes or Google Play, we appreciate each and every one of you who does so. Leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes. It does help a lot. We get a lot of love and a lot of listens after the fact on the podcast app, so we appreciate that as well. And so we're gonna be either doing an Xbox 2+1 this upcoming week or an Xbox Ultimate. We'll let you guys know. Might be Tuesday, might be Wednesday, depending on the days. If you guys are shopping at manscaped.com, make sure to use code XB2 to get 20% off on everything. And enjoy your weekend, right? You got anything to say, Jez? Anything you want to impart before we get out of here?
Nope. just stay awesome and don't play Skull and Bones.
Don't play Skull and Bones, and thank God for insiders, right?
Yes.
Anyways,
good old insiders.
Keep it gaming, guys, and we'll see you next week. Later.
Take care, everybody.